Welcome to the March 14th Scarborough Planning Board meeting. For those of you who might be out there listening and aren't sure how to find us, or if you want to find us, let me just say to folks who have that interest that you can find the planning board agenda on the Scarborough website. And along with that agenda, there would be a way to access this meeting by Zoom or by YouTube. But thank you all for showing up tonight. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Doreen, will you please call the roll?
Rachel Hendrickson.
Here.
Rick Meinking.
Here.
Roger Beely.
Here.
Jennifer Ladd. Here. Karen Shute. Here. Chad Reed.
Here.
And if we do not have, if Rick Duperi is not online, then Karen Shoup will be a voting member. And almost Chad was. All right, Karen, until Rick shows up, you are a voting member. Thank you. I just want to take a moment or two, and then I'm going to ask Roger to speak, just to inform folks who had not seen of the death of Sue Auglis. Sue was a longtime member of the planning board. I served with her, as did Roger, and she was extremely active in the town as a volunteer and a concerned citizen, and she certainly will be missed. The town has suffered a loss. She was a great contributor to the culture of Scarborough. Roger?
Sure, thanks, Rachel. I would echo what Rachel just said. Sue has been around town for many, many years. She was on this board for many, many times. And in fact, I think she was on and off and then on again. And she was on the long range planning committee too, I think, and different iterations of that over the years. So she was very active in the community. And she passed away just a week ago today. And you know, she was really dedicated. She was very proud to refer to herself as the tree lady. And so there's fewer trees in town because she's not here. So town's going to miss her.
Thank you, Roger. The approval of the minutes for January 31st. Do I hear a motion? Excuse me, the minutes for February 22nd. Do I hear a motion?
I'll entertain I'll give you a motion for that date.
Yeah,
Madam
thank
Chair.
you very much. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any corrections, amendments, additions? All right, hearing none, let us call the roll.
Rachel Hendrickson.
Yes.
Rick Meinking.
Yes.
Roger Beely.
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd. Yes. Chad Reed.
Yes.
So I'm voting.
Thank you. We now go to item 5, Costco Wholesale Development request a sketch plan review for a retail facility at the Innovation District of Scarborough Downs, Assessors Map U053, lots 1, 1A, and 1B. Eric.
Thank you. So Costco Wholesale is seeking a sketch plan review to construct a 161,000 square foot retail and wholesale building with an accessory gasoline filling station located at the intersection of Payne Road and Scarborough Downs Road. As the board might be aware, it previously asked the applicant to provide some site layouts that meet the town's commercial design standards, primarily siting the building at the front of the lot and the gas station and parking being sited away from the road. Several layouts have been provided to this effect, and the applicant has indicated a reason why each of these would not work as a proposed layout and why the January sketch plan was presented as it was. The board also asked for an analysis that justifies larger parking spaces than the town's minimum standard, as well as more parking spaces on the site than what is required by the zoning ordinance. The applicant's traffic engineer has provided a justification for the board's review, noting customer volumes at comparable Costco locations in similarly sized cities and towns. So the board probably knows that the intended outcome of this second sketch plan is for it to provide some guidance to the applicant on the direction of the site development pattern and layout. Once a preferred layout is identified, staff will work with the applicant on a formal site plan submission. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And for the applicant, and after the applicant has spoken, there is an opportunity for public comment. Yeah, I don't think you're,
You can just speak into the mic. Hopefully that should be on. Those lights don't have.
yeah, certainly we can hear you in here, whether it's actually going out over Zoom, I'm not clear, and it looks as though there's a problem. There's the answer.
Site plans, and then our traffic engineer can speak to a number of parking spaces. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Good evening again. My name is Michelle Carlson. I'm a licensed professional civil engineer. With me tonight, I have Chris Teasler from Kittleson Traffic Engineering company that's working with us on this. Also, Mark Marchesano from Costco's here, and Kim Mazowick from BL Companies is here tonight too. So we were here last and, you wanted to know how we evolved the site layout, where we got with the site layout. And we probably had 22 plus concept sketches of how we got from where we started square one to the plan that we had shown you in the last meeting. And we started by looking at the regulations, and that was the first plan. If you could go to the next slide, please. The first layout plan, the intent was to look at how can we meet regulations. So we looked at putting the building up on Payne Road in Scarborough's Downs, and it didn't fit here. The dimensions didn't work for Costco. The top of the page, there's the tire center that would be squished against the property line. Bottom of the page, we have the loading area that's extremely close to the entrance that's already there. You could see where we have the green truck traffic coming in and out. That's also would be a main entrance for people entering into the parking field, and it's not an ideal situation from a safety standpoint. Also, the back of the house would be up against Payne Road, and we would be taking more of the tree buffer that's there. We would only meet the minimum requirements for the 15-foot buffer on Payne Road because of where we'd have to situate the building in order to accommodate that main entrance. So it wasn't safe. Also, there was more wetlands fill involved with this plan. We had just about 0.66 acres, I believe, is on the plan of wetlands fill for this plan. So we kind of said, okay, this doesn't really seem to work. We had plenty of parking. We had 804 parking spaces. Didn't meet the interior landscaping at this point either with this plan. So we figured we need to go to the next version. So if you could go to sketch plan 2. With this plan, we looked at, okay, can we turn the building, and how would that work if we still had it on the corner? And one of the main problems with this layout was the entrance off of Scarborough Downs Road. We couldn't get a safe entrance. If you look at that entrance, it's right by the front of the building. We have the front of the building labeled. Oh, did I just go to?
I did that, trying to make it a little bigger for everyone.
But now can you go back to sketch plan 2? Just trying to see if I'm paying attention. So what this does is this eliminates where it says dangerous, the big red dangerous at the bottom. That is not a good movement to have. That's right by the front of the door. That's where the majority of the traffic's coming in. This time the loading and the compactors are along Payne Road, which isn't very aesthetically pleasing. And we don't have a good enough parking field by the entrance. We like to have a circle of parking with a lot of parking around the entrance. And here we have even more wetlands fill. We have just under an acre of wetlands fill along Scarborough Downs Road. So we're basically eliminating where that front parking field is, that wooded area right now in that wetland system. This would be very hard also to be approved by Maine DEP and the Corps. This one also had plenty of parking spaces, number 2, but it didn't meet the interior landscaping yet. So then we went on to a third sketch. What would it look like if we position the building? You see, we're kind of like working around the site. If we move it further over onto Scarborough Downs Road and Innovation Way. Well, here, the main entrance on Scarborough Downs Road is not in the same spot as that existing curb cut. This would have to be a right in, right out access. This wouldn't be safe from a traffic standpoint. And also, we are now filling in 1.5 acres of wetlands. And we've basically eliminated that whole buffer along Scarborough Downs. The loading area up on the page right off of Innovation Way is in conflict with the only full access driveway on this plan. So there would be potentially truck movements there and then full access cars coming in. And the gas station is on the hard corner, which we didn't think was aesthetically pleasing in an ideal situation. Now we can go to the fourth plan, how we then said, well, what if we turn the building and we tuck it up further along Innovation Way? This is the least invasive with the wetlands fill. We hold the access point that's there. This provides a nice buffer, a treed buffer along Innovation Way. We've moved the gas up along Payne. This gives us the most queuing space for the gas station. And we also are allowed a 22-foot buffer in front of the gas station along Payne Road. We have more of a buffer in that area for screening. We have all the loading is, back, it's hidden, it's covered. Access for trucks is clean and easy. We have, they come in off of Innovation Way. They go right around the back of the building. There's less conflicts with the members that are coming in and out of the site. And this just seemed to fit the best and make the most sense. We preserve the most wetlands. We meet the interior landscaping requirement. And that's how we got from kind of our building against Payne Road to where the building is now. And like I said, there were probably about 22 plans of different tweaks and iterations of these basic concepts, but these were the 4 basic concepts that we looked at. And I would like to note that what we did on concept plan 4 is we did make the parking spaces behind the building 10 feet wide by 18 foot deep, as these would be more for employees and they'd be less likely to be used for customers. So we did decrease those in a depth by 2 feet. Do you have any questions about the methodology? Would you like me to have Chris come up now and walk through the number of parking spaces?
Let's finish up with your presentation and then public comment. And then you can stand back up and the board will ask the questions. Questions. I think that works best.
Yeah, bring up the next one for Chris, and then if you need to go back. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Chris Teasler with Kittleson and Associates, the applicant's traffic engineer. So you've obviously received the memo. I believe it's in your packet that we prepared after working with staff to kind of identify a little bit more documentation and information regarding parking for this site. So I'll just give a quick high-level overview of kind of the 2 main points. The first was just looking at the number of parking spaces and what Costco is typically trying to achieve and what we've seen for sites in similar markets, similar sizes, and similar building sizes as it compares to what the town code would otherwise stipulate. And as we looked at those similar scale type of location area, what we're seeking here with the 794 stalls is basically a parking ratio per 1,000 square feet of 4.93. Turns out that that's kind of right in the middle of the average of what we've seen at, I think, at 10 or 12 other locations that we were able to pull from our database of information. So certainly not the most intensively parked and not the least, but that number is also important, again, based on the market. and to make sure that we have enough parking on this site to adequately serve Costco members and the anticipated demands that we would see. Which really brings me to the second point, which is just looking at parking utilization for Costco's as a whole throughout an entire year, and kind of the typical target ranges that both Costco looks for and really industry best practice kind of tells us to seek. You can see throughout the year, obviously parking demands will fluctuate in November and December around the Christmas holidays are typically the highest that we see. But you can see even in the summer months as well, that would be busy. And I can imagine here in Scarborough, in Maine, it would be busier in the summer months too, especially as a last perhaps stop as they venture further north this summer, as I have done myself to Acadia. So, I guess what I wanted to point out here was, again, looking at the sites of comparable size, area, makeup of the markets, and looking at utilization. What Costco is seeking here with this site, the 794 spaces, really is in line with, I guess, what they try to get on we'll call it an off-peak or more standard 80% utilization versus peak periods of utilization where they're still trying to maintain about 85% utilization. And again, that's consistent with parking best practice, which is once we get to about 85%, really the efficiency and functionality of that parking, if you get much beyond that, really starts to break down. People aren't able to find empty spaces as they come onto the site. There's a lot more circulation and it kind of compounds itself. It's just not nearly as efficient, and that starts to create issues with pedestrian vehicular maneuvers, potentially, truck maneuvers as well on the site, and it just kind of breaks down. So one thing Costco certainly doesn't want to do is become a problem for itself, or even, have that parking demand or inefficiency spill back and affect public streets and roadways, such as Scarborough Downs Road or Payne Road. And that's really what we're trying to achieve with this site plan. So that's my summary of the parking issues. Oh, that is, I guess that's the other thing I can touch on, is the size of the parking spaces. Is that important? Okay. I knew there was one more thing. So when we think about the size, Costco does typically try to get 10-foot parking spaces wherever possible. There's a few reasons for that. Again, one is efficiency and safety and comfort for their members. Costco carts are actually much larger than your standard grocery store shopping cart. Obviously, they cater in bulk goods and larger items, and so they, naturally those things are a little bit bigger. Having more space between the vehicles allows members not only to get more out of the travel way and the drive aisles when they're loading their cars, potentially even getting the shopping cart completely out of the way. It also allows for those larger vehicles that people tend to bring to Costco because they know they're going to be buying, a more substantial amount of goods and merchandise, to load them up safely and effectively. And the nature of the car that they choose to even bring oftentimes is the larger. Some people have like the small car at home and then their big SUV or the family truckster. They bring the family truckster to Costco and not the smaller car typically. So that's really the impetus behind that. As Michelle mentioned, there are several spots along the perimeter of the building that they have shrunk the size somewhat, again, in trying to be reactive and responsive to your code. And also when we're thinking about where the employees are most likely to be parked away from like that prime parking area where Costco members are going to be most likely parking in proximity to the front door. And again, drive aisle width, we are shrinking from 25 to 24. Again, that allows us to get a little bit bigger spaces, but we've been able to show and looked at the turning movements, and that drive aisle width is more than adequate to promote that circulation, comfort, and mobility for the members on the site as they circulate around. So now I think I covered all the parking things. So sorry about that.
Yeah, I needed to ensure that we were done here. All right, public comment is open. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a comment? If you do, please approach the podium, give your name and address, and you are limited to 3 minutes. And when we get about 30 seconds away, I will just gently give you a warning. And that's asking you essentially to wind up. Do you have anybody in the room? Do we have anyone online?
I do not see anyone online who has raised their hand, but I will just mention that they should use the raise the hand feature if they would like to comment. So maybe want to give just pause a moment for that. We have about 10 folks or so online.
No one? In that case, the public hearing is closed. And I will turn this to the board with a reminder that this is a sketch plan. And our job is to give them as much guidance as possible so that they can take that and work with the staff and ensure that the site plan, the actual site plan that comes back to us is acceptable and meets all of the standards. Would anyone like to go first?
They're making me go first over here.
All right, Jen.
Because I'm doing math. You're doing math. You need to go first. Okay, first of all, certainly appreciate the additional concepts helping us to sort of help us come up to speed with where your team has been. I know that on any project, including one like this, that iterative process is long. So thank you for sharing your thoughts that way with us. I have a lot of comments about these, but just trying to think about what the information is that you need at this point in order to better figure out how to proceed. I'm going to talk in a circle here for a second, but I'm not convinced based on the material that's submitted that I think larger stalls and the significant increase in parking inventory is warranted. Maybe like one or the other, but it seems like, you're proposing essentially a 23% increase over what our standard is in terms of parking supply, and the individual stalls that you're talking about are each 24% larger than what we specify. So compounded, we're talking about just like a really, really, really large parking field. And I understand the store is large, and I appreciate the business model and the larger goods and just vehicles and everything that you're talking about. But I also don't necessarily feel, and I don't have all the information on this. This is my gut reaction here, but we have other stores like this. And so I'm curious if you're, I'm going to throw out some competitors here, but like do Sam's Club and BJ's or Walmart even, or Home Depot or Lowe's, like places where other people are purchasing, large goods. Did they also have larger parking stalls and or additional parking quantities in that way? And the math that I was doing that he's spying on me over here, you're talking about shrinking the depth of some of these stalls, but also keeping a more narrow drive aisle width. We see a large number of our projects come in with a waiver for a more narrow drive aisle like you're talking about. And so I actually wonder how many of your customers load their goods in the back of their car, which are probably at the aisle. They're not, I just picture like bulk paper towels or something, like probably aren't going into the side of a car. And again, this is all generalities, but just trying to think about what's the middle ground here? How can we come up with a design that is perhaps a little bit closer to our standards here, but that doesn't, preclude your business model, which is different than, our blanket retail rates that those are based on. So I just overall on any of these concepts, I just see a lot of pavement in a sensitive environmental area that I'm not sure needs to be there. And we're getting closer, like the information that you provided was helpful, but I'm not quite sold on that just yet. So that's on parking size and quantity. On the topic of the different sketches that you provided, which in my opinion also feel very much tied to the amount and size of the parking that you're asking for. So you're saying that, a lot of these sketches don't fit, but the data provided on the side of these, one of them includes 833 parking spaces, which is even further beyond, that's almost a 5-to-1, five spots per 1,000 feet. That's a lot more than what we're, what our standard is for. And so I question whether or not you may be able to fit a better concept onto this lot with a little bit smaller or less parking. And I definitely appreciate the reduced parking size, the reduced parking stall sizes for employee parking. And so I wonder, maybe that's an avenue. Could we have some other compact, they're not technically compact, they would be like traditional parking spaces on site, but not everybody is coming to your site in a Suburban or a pickup with a boat trailer or something like that. You know what I mean? And so that could just be a way for you to sort of recoup some of that impervious area and perhaps fit a little bit more of what you need to on the site, limiting wetland impacts and all the other things that you're trying to juggle, which are very difficult. I know. I do have a question about what the general overlap is between your loading and delivery activity and typical business hours. Do you generally take deliveries like off hours, or are they coming while the store is open?
Yeah, let me ask you folks how you would prefer to do this. Wait until we're done with our questions and observations, or stand up at the podium now and respond when a question comes up.
If I may.
No, actually, you need to be on Zoom, so you would have to stand up there.
My name is Mark Marchisano. I'm Director of Development at Costco Wholesale. I think I'd like to answer your questions, or at least respond to them, because it might cover a lot of questions that somebody else might have.
Sure. After this, I only have other thoughts on the fueling station.
That's
all.
fine.
Go ahead.
So our business model is very active. We're not the same business as Lowe's or Home Depot. There are Sam's Clubs and there are BJ's. Our business actually does twice as much as the average Sam's Club and average BJ's. So there's a volume requirement that we have that we need to meet for our members. If I look at different regions, California being one, or if I look at Canada, we have a minimum requirement that's needed to just sustain our business of 1,000 parking spaces. So we're very conscious about what we are as a business. We're a retail warehouse. We provide not only to individual members, we provide to other businesses that, are smaller shops that happen within downtowns and things like that. We're not a pedestrian-based business. So the way that someone typically shops, and any retailer or any member that's going to any place to shop, if they have a Volkswagen Bug versus a Suburban, they're not necessarily always going to sit and wait in one spot to park in a compact spot versus something else. It's not efficient. It forces more people to wait and do circles. It creates much more issues with that internal traffic. So as Chris mentioned, we try to keep that 85% utilization rate. In the last meeting, someone had commented, are we empty during the day, during off-peak hours? We're not. We use a large portion of it, and that's why we have come to know exactly how many parking spaces we need. So reducing the parking spaces is not an option. It's what we've done is we've evaluated where we are in the market. And if we could have more, yes, I would have more, because I know it'll be used. But we've come down to be able to be as efficient as possible on this site, which is in that 790 something spots. As far as the size is concerned, it really is an efficiency. If you use our parking stalls, it's a much more pleasurable experience. It's a safer experience. We do have much bigger carts. I mean, they're significant, but you can push them between all vehicles. And that's a very big thing because it allows people to flow through our sites pretty cleanly. You know, it's safer because they have ways to get through and get out. And as far as how people load, you'd be surprised how many people still side load in their cars. And so instead of having to keep the cart at the back of the car, go up, they can actually come up further in between and they can side load. So it really is an efficiency of the way the members tend to shop and what they're trying to get.
Please make sure you're talking into the mic.
Sorry, I get animated. What was the other question? As far as,
Oh, loading and when.
yeah,
like your
so the
delivery
loading,
schedule.
we typically try to do, the majority of our loading is off hours. But it does overlap. We do have smaller trucks that come to like the bread doors on the side. And so there is activity that happens during the day, but the majority of the big loading happens after hours, which is into the evening, late at night and early in the morning. So we can, get our employees in at 3, 4 a.m. and they can do we call it the forklift ballet.
It would be helpful, I suspect, if you tell us what your hours are.
Our hours are typically 10 in the morning until 8 p.m. We have on the weekends, we'll close at 6:30 or 7:30. So we'll adjust them a little bit based on the location. And the gas station is typically open an hour earlier and closes an hour later.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Just two more thoughts.
Oh, if I may, just because Michelle's pointing it out to me. The one thing we do know is Lowe's and Walmart and their new standards have the same size parking spaces we typically have. The locations here are a little bit older, but they're still new. They still have they have about the same quantity as well. So there's no real difference as far as layouts and what the requirements for the parking are between us.
Okay, that is helpful. Thank you. Some context. I
if
didn't
I-
actually go measure anything myself.
So Mark, if I could just jump in on that. So did you say the size of the spaces or the number of spaces for those?
Both.
So I actually had this conversation with Kim back in February, but the town standards had actually changed since those were approved in, I think, 2004, 2005-ish. So since then, we've moved from the 10 by 20 to the 9 by 18.
No, I realize that, but I'm referring actually to them as a company in other locations as well
Okay.
in general.
So like if they were to come in now, you're saying they would essentially be asking for the same.
I can't say what they would
You're-
do.
you're- Yeah, I gotcha.
So
That's fine. Okay, so again, you're, because of these requirements that you have on your end in terms of parking size and quantity, I have a hard time understanding that that is not contributing in a significant way to how you've chosen to position the building. And so, if you were able to reduce either of those in even a little bit, I just wonder if it may alleviate some space concerns elsewhere on the site. I have, with regard to the fueling station, I couldn't have planned this any better or worse maybe, but the other day I was in Portland on Warren Avenue, middle of the day, nothing particularly special about it other than gas prices are through the roof now. So I'm assuming like everybody was in line at BJ's off of Warren Avenue to get gas. And I didn't actually even realize that there was a BJ's there. But I realized this like long queue of cars that was out onto Warren Avenue and back through the left turn queuing lane. And I thought like, weird, there must be construction or something like that. Which there wasn't. And as I was going past, I realized it was all these people waiting in line for gas. And I didn't stop at the time, but after that, I went back because I'm a nerd and
Why are you looking at me?
because I know you'd like to call me out on that. And I measured, I measured again, roughly, this is like a Google measurement, approximately how much space, because I couldn't even see the fueling stations from where this queue was backed up. And I don't know, maybe they just had a truck come or whatever the situation was. Roughly 650 feet of queuing length to get to their fueling stations. For additional reference, I did the same thing at Sam's Club here, and that's somewhere in the order of 800, over 800 feet, almost 830 feet. The sketch plan 4 that you're showing, again, if I use my same very rough measuring tactics, and again, I'm saying this only for order of magnitude, I get about 100 feet. And so I'm concerned and a little confused about how, first of all, how the 4th sketch plan offers, I think you said it offers the most storage or queuing storage leading up to the fueling station. And so there's a chance I don't fully understand how your operations around that are working. And then, you know, this, I get it from the building standpoint, but to identify on like sketch plan 2 that, you know, you're recognizing this internal intersection as being a dangerous place for mixing of vehicles coming in off of Scarborough Downs Road, pedestrians, you know, turning movements. I just continue to have significant concerns about actually what the proximity of that fueling activity and potential queuing problems on Payne Road is. And, you know, Payne Road is really a different traffic situation than what you would see coming in off of Scarborough Downs Road onto the site. And so I just, I don't know if you can talk to us a little bit about maybe the fueling operations. I know you kind of went over that a little bit last time, but help us understand how this is actually a safe option, because I'm not seeing it that way right now.
I can go through in much more detail. Jay, is it possible to pull up the sketch, the site plans? Because I'll talk about a few different things. So which would you like me to go over first? Well,
I think if you could talk about the fueling, like I know you're queuing up a couple of
If
lanes
you
here,
can-
but
Jay, if you can pull it so you can see, yeah, right there, that's perfect. Nope, go up. So our canopy is actually further to the right in this site plan. So we actually have an immense amount of data as to how our gas stations work. So the Sam's Club up here doesn't have as much queuing as we actually have here in this layout. And what you're talking about is a scenario where, you know, there's a situation that's happened and gas prices have gone through the roof, and now people are really trying to do that. And I wouldn't ever deny that we don't have traffic issues that have evolved over the years. You know, we've gone through situations where we've had traffic blocking, but that's what's caused us to evolve and figure out in extreme detail how these all work. So several things are key. One is we're single direction, so that way people can't just sort of free go in different directions. We have a member that comes in and can guide people. The vehicles can fill from either side of the car. You can fill a big F-350 from the opposite side of the tank because we have longer hoses that accommodate both that. So there's no issue as far as the vehicles that we provide fuel for having the ability to fuel from either side. As I mentioned in the last one, we have an average fill time of 3.5 to 4 minutes. It's much faster than the average gas station. So people really do figure out how to get in and get through. So that creates a lot more. Our gas station, we have the drive lanes are purposely wide enough to be safe, but then we also have a through lane between the pumps. So you have two cars that can load, that are on either side filling up, and then you have a center lane So that allows anybody within it can actually get out very safely. And you can also, if someone is waiting for it, we'll have the attendant be watching. If they don't see it, in the new gas stations, we actually have like a lighting system that helps it. So people can get in and they can move in. So the technical functionality of how it works is really advanced actually in being able to maneuver people through the facility. And we have, I forget the exact data, but if, for example, in this one, we show 3 islands by 4 deep. If I was to add a 4th island, we increase our throughput by about 20%. And I can tell you in places in California where we're extremely busy, we're doing 5 by 5s now. So that's just, they're much larger and putting through a lot more people. But separate from that, so let's say we are in a situation where the gas station is full. We just got people coming in and it's backed up. So what we do is we have a plan for that. That entrance down at the bottom gets shut off because we don't want people backing up and blocking that entrance and then backing onto Payne Road. So what they would end up doing is they would end up coming in, and we have several different layouts that we would work out. And we typically do this when we get our warehouse manager selected. We have options for them to come into the parking lot and be able to stage within the parking lot. But when we're doing that, we're really staging a lot of people. And that does not happen if we've planned for it, it doesn't happen on a regular basis. So what you're seeing when you go out recently, I can actually attest to the fact that our gas stations around the country, around here and in Canada, are all busier because of the current situation.
And, you know, like you said before, you know, we shouldn't necessarily be designing for like the absolute worst case, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, you know, kind of situation. So I can appreciate that.
Well, we actually, I mean, the Wednesday, like what you're commenting, that type of stuff we plan for. It's the extremes that make it a little more difficult. You know, when the gas price has gone up 40% in a year.
Right. Yeah. Anyone with anything other than the most expensive gas is really busy right now.
As far as to go back and answer your other question about the quantity of parking spaces, it really is the way our business, it's the popularity and the usability of our business. We're not providing extra spaces because we want to. I don't want to spend the money to provide those extra spaces. One of the benefits to Costco is we're efficient. So we focus on a number of things in our builds. One is we want to make sure we reduce the amount of maintenance that happens in our facilities. So we have 30-year buildings, we have 30-year parking lots, et cetera, et cetera. We Swiss cheese sites with geotechnical information so that we understand what's going on. We go out of our way to make sure our buildings are 100% recyclable. You know, we look at all of those different types of things. And by keeping our approach to architecture and to layouts, we're able to keep our costs manageable, and we can pass that on to our members. That's why we as a business, we don't go and charge 100% more than what we can buy something for. We're trying to be as efficient, and then we're also trying to pass those savings of maintenance usability on throughout the years. So we're very conscious about the whole structure of it. You know, it's expensive. Every acre of land that I have to park is extremely expensive. And also it's not efficient if I really add on to it. So as much as I respect and the idea of wanting to reduce it, we're a 160,000 square foot facility. We offer a lot to members and businesses, and we have a really good understanding of how parking and our members' access to our facilities are needed so that we keep it safe and usable.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Next, who'd like to go next? Roger?
Sure. I'm actually the one that asked about the parking utility.
Okay.
So I appreciate you providing that information. It's the first time I recall being on the board where we've received information like that from any applicant, so I may be mistaken. Um, Regarding, just to piggyback on the fuel thing, I just wanted clarification on the, you basically will have people coming in off of Payne Road, right?
For the fuel station, they can access the fuel station from either side. They can come in off Payne Road or they can come in from the parking lot.
But if they're just coming for fuel, most likely it's just gonna come off of Payne Road.
Yeah.
And so they would come off and make a shop right there. And you've got, how many fuel stations do you have in each of those 3 aisles? Do you know offhand?
It's 4 deep, so we have, and there's one on either side.
Yeah, okay.
So it's,
And you said that there's
yeah, we're doing this is the 4x3.
and you
Oh, wait.
said that there's enough width between those. So a car is, if one's behind another one getting fueled up, they can pull out and.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
Based on normal circumstances, and I understand what we're going through now is kind of unique, and you can't plan you can't do your business plan based on what's not normal. I mean, so based on your experience with your other facilities, will this be adequate queuing?
Yes. It's actually a little bit more than some of our other locations.
And so what happens when cars come in off of Payne Road and they take a sharp right and all of a sudden there's a car there? What are
We have our attendants are going to be paying attention to that.
Yeah.
So if, for example, that top lane starts to back up and the other ones are not, they're going to make sure they direct people to get into the further ones to fill up all the different lanes.
Okay.
If all those lanes are starting to fill up and you get queuing up to there, they're going to be pulling out the cones and they're going to be blocking that off and they're going to direct people off so that they start to.
Go down through the parking lot?
Exactly.
Okay. Regarding the, first of all, I just want to comment on the sketches on the setting of the building. I'm comfortable with where you have the building sited, where your preferred place is, because this is a very high profile location. And there's going to be a lot of parking. I mean, you can't get around it. It requires a lot of parking. And I think it's really incumbent upon you folks to have some nice landscaping around the parking, even within the parking, the islands and things like that. I think that that would be very important. I wanted to ask you about the the typical drive aisle widths at your other locations. What are they typically?
25.
Are they 25? Why are you going to 24 instead of 25?
We call them our development guidelines. We go with either one.
Okay.
And it gives us a little bit of flexibility to deal with items that come up, such as the parking depths. So if I can reduce the drive aisle by 1 foot, then I can keep the 10 by 20 parking space.
Okay. I actually understand your rationale for the space between the vehicle, the parking spaces and the oversized parking spaces. I think it's kind of interesting, the comments about the other big box stores going with a similar type arrangement. And I think our standards are probably based on, have our standards changed to accommodate these big box stores like this?
So they were previously in the early 2000s, they called for 10 by 20 spaces, these larger spaces, but since that time, the standard has been, or I guess the standard has been updated. So now it's 9 by 18.
So it's been reduced.
Yes, right. I think that was something we worked on probably upwards of 10 years ago, if I had to take a guess. I can pull up the book, but it's been a number of years since we worked on it. And I think a lot of that had to do with sort of the prevailing literature and what we were finding in national studies and the sort, that the standard size was typically the 9 by 18.
If I may give an example, Costco as a company is very aware and treats its employees amazing. I can tell you, I wouldn't be working for them if they didn't do and approach each individual as they do. You know, the CEO,
Lean into the mic, please.
everybody has an open door policy. So from an employee standpoint, they really go out of their way. When it comes to the members, we do the same thing. So our CEO, Craig Jelnick, as an example, has mandated that in our curbs, when you come up on a parking space and you're up against an island, we refer to it as the Jelnick step, essentially. So on the island, that's a landscape island, there is a portion of it that's now a thicker concrete instead of just a standard curb, because he's worried that when people get out of their car, he doesn't want them stepping in mud. So it's not always known, but those little details are important. It's important to safety, it's important to the efficiency, and it's important to the experience when someone comes to shop.
I can see the rationale for having the wider spaces and the large parking spaces. In fact, I think the larger box stores probably should have that. I mean, I don't think a standard, you can, you know, a smaller operation. You have to me, you have to differentiate the standard depending on the size of the operation and what the operation consists of. So I guess I don't really have a problem with that, what you're talking about regarding the size of the parking space as well as the space between the parking spaces. I think that does make sense. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's not changed in the future to accommodate large operations such as this. I think that's all I have at this point. You know, I obviously it's a lot of parking spaces, and I know the town likes to keep these things to the rear or basically out of sight, you know. But I think in this situation, I would much rather have the building located where it is than up against Payne Road or even the Downs Road, because then you just see a massive building really up close. And I don't think that would be that attractive, where, like I said before, with proper landscaping. And I'm talking about nice landscaping, not just leave the trees or whatever's there right now. I mean, obviously if they're decent, fine, but I'm talking about nicely landscaped.
We will be landscaping. We're also trying to leave where we can, like in all the wetlands areas and a little more front, more of the existing trees because they are nice and it's a solid depth.
And I guess, you know, we've had a number of situations in the past where we've had to rely on the experience of the applicant as to what they feel their needs are. And I think this is a case, from my point of view, where I'm willing to accept. I mean, they're a very reputable national outfit. And they, you know, I'm sure they've done extensive studies and everything to find out what's best for their customers, their members. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess. So.
All right, thank you, Roger. But I do feel compelled to remind folks that this is a sketch plan and that anything that comes before us as part of a site plan has got to be fully justified. Mm-hmm. In other words, you have indicated that you have lots of data. I expect to see that. I expect you to work with the planning board on that. If there are waivers that are required, and right now you are asking in effect what we're seeing here, we might expect a waiver to come for the number of parking spaces and the size of the parking spaces. And in each of those cases, the burden of proof is on you if that's what you choose to come. So the board is part of the sketch plan process. You get a sense of where the board is, but nothing happens until the board votes. And it is up to you how that's going to go in terms of the information that you provide for us and the justification for us to grant a waiver to what's a longstanding ordinance. Someone else, who's next?
I'll go real quick because
Okay.
I don't have much because it's been talked about already. And I do appreciate the applicant coming and presenting as we had asked them to different scenarios on the building orientation and where the fuel pumps are. And in the case in which you're advocating for, that is the least number of parking spots of all of your sketches. So for that, I think there's a benefit to having that location closer to Innovation Way. I'm reminded of the building, the Target building in South Portland, as you come in off that road and you hit that one side. This feels very similar to that sort of entrance into the parking lot from Innovation Way. And I haven't heard, or I don't have any data to support any issues, or I haven't heard of anything. So from that aspect, I think, where you're trying to put this building in that corner up there, given it's the least parking plan, I can gravitate there. Of course, the devil's in the details when we see it on site plan. The only other note I'd like to make is that just because you have an EV doesn't mean you should have to walk the furthest to get your car charged. So consider where you place your EV chargers, consider the number that you're proposing. If you're looking for 794 parking spots and you're only going to give us 4 EVs, you're not anticipating the citizens of Maine to progress into the EV world. And I think it's happening faster and faster. So pay attention to that, as well as this site could probably benefit from both level 2 and level 3 chargers. So that we can get people in and out, they can do their shopping and head back up to Bangor on a full tank of gas. And those that are local commutes, they probably only need a couple of gallons worth of electricity, so they only need 30 or 40 minutes. So consider that. And with that, I would look forward to the data that you're going to bring with your site plan. And as I sit here today, while I'm not endorsing anything at this juncture, I tend to think that the layout that you had proposed and continue to propose in your sketch plan 4, I think it is, seems to me to be visually better, because Innovation, there is going to be a lot of vegetation there. So I could live with that location if that's the best for the parking situation and minimizing the impervious surface. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
So first, I want to thank the applicant. I appreciate all the extra information that you've given today. I think it was interesting for me to hear that Costco generates twice as much business as Sam's Club, and I think the places that I was comparing them to. So you look at this space, and I think they're already making some concessions as to what they nationally already do. I appreciate sort of the explanation for the size of the parking spaces. Sorry, I'm in trouble too. I think actually in Maine, you're going to find that there's going to be more bigger cars. I think most people have SUVs, most people have really big trucks. So I think the justification behind the size of the parking spaces makes a lot of sense and will be utilized here more than you would probably in the city. I think last time I'd expressed a lot of concerns about the gas station, and I think Jen kind of brought up some more technical concerns about things she had seen in other places. Again, you guys really seem to have it together. You have your research. I'd love to see a little more information about it. The fact that you have a plan in place and you have an attendant there who's immediately ready to respond, put cones up, make sure the traffic isn't being built up. I also think it's a huge deal that you can fill on both sides, because you'll go to Sam's Club and one side will be completely backed up and the other side won't. And I feel like that also kind of makes me feel more comfortable with the concerns I had about the gas. That was it.
Thank you. Chad?
I'll keep it short. I guess I am interested in the rear of the site and potential snow storage. Is there a drop off towards the rear, towards the stormwater
Chad,
basin?
lead in. If you can't hear kind of an echo, then you're not being picked up on the mic.
So at the rear of the site, is there any sort of drop off? It appears there's a guardrail maybe at the edge or?
Behind the building towards the other lot. I'm not sure I don't think it's that much of a drop off at all.
And yeah, if there's any opportunities here as far as snow storage on site, or is it all trucked off?
We typically plan for it to be on site, so we'll work through. We haven't completely worked through exactly for snow storage plan, but that will be put together. It typically is, if we can, we try to do it on the perimeters, but if there's wetlands that we have issues with, then we will have to choose a location that's a little further away from the entrance, but internal. So we try to accommodate that. Maine doesn't get a lot of snow though. I miss snow. I'm from Virginia and we get it one day and it's gone the next. I wish it would stay.
Chad, are you okay? All right, thank you. Gee, the job of winding up is just wonderful. I want to echo what my colleagues have said, the appreciation for the work that you've done, that we had asked you to do, and you did a very thorough job. One thing we didn't ask you to do, which I now regret, is explain why that size of the building. Because if you had a smaller building, we wouldn't have this problem. We have had in the past buildings that have been presented to us and sketch plans that have been almost a final version, and the building's simply too large for the site. And that leaves us trying to wrestle with how do we work with the developer to ensure that our needs are met as well as the developer's needs. I did notice that in the material you sent us, your buildings went as low as 139,000 feet, at least the ones that you presented, and as high as 166,000 feet. And you're looking here at 161,000 feet. I would guess a minus 20,000 feet, and we've solved a lot of problems in terms of layout and in terms of trying to get enough parking into the area. That's up to you, whether you want to take a look at that. We didn't
I can
ask you to
answer
do
that
that
for you.
before. So, that's up to you on what you're going to go forward with. As I said, in a sense, you're asking us basically come before us for two waivers. Part of the problem, though, is I look at the parking space that you've got. I suspect I know some of the answers. I was a member of Costco in Virginia. And yes, it does snow, and sometimes it really, really snows a lot. But that means it's over 3 inches and everything stops. In terms of the parking lot, I don't see where pedestrians walk. I don't see safe grounds for them, safe passageways for them to walk. I think you're going to need a lot of wayfinding for folks in terms of how to travel from here to there. In terms of don't go in the back of the building because that's for the staff parking. In other words, you're going to have to pay a lot of attention to what you have set up in the parking lot, and a lot of attention in terms of the landscaping in the parking lot. And again, this is a sketch plan. We wouldn't expect to see that, but I'm letting you know that that's something that we do look at. And we do look for as you go to a site plan, how you arrange for that sort of pedestrian safety. If folks just leave their carts in the parking lot, I would assume that you've got folks that go out and bring them in, but that's the sort of information we need to know. We need to see that on the plan. I understand you've set up you've set up a situation where you're saying it can't be an either or, it must be both. And you're saying it must be both 794 parking spaces and the 10 by 20 slots. And I'm hearing from the board in general terms that that's a problem. So you're going to have some decisions to make in terms of the amount of parking that you have, how it's configured, and what size it is, and how you accommodate pedestrian safety in all of those decisions. I'm enthusiastic about Costco coming. I suspect that as the configuration, the size of the building that you have now, SK4 is probably the way to go. A smaller building would say that that there are other options. I'm certainly going to be looking at a lot of buffering and the need for a lot of buffering. If you've got that the gas station in front, we need to see robust landscaping. Given the amount of parking that you have lined up in front of Payne Road, if that's going to stay there, we need to see robust landscaping. You don't hear the complaints and the concerns from Scarborough residents about parking lots that are just loaded with asphalt. You don't get those phone calls. Jay gets them, Eric gets them. I hear them from folks on the street. And we do pay attention to that. We do pay attention to how a business looks in Scarborough, and how it looks affects how it is received by the people of Scarborough. You could end up putting a building in there that everybody complains about, and that hurts your reputation. So please work with the staff, please work with us in terms of getting a site plan that really meets the needs of Scarborough and meets the needs of Costco. I think it's possible, but I think there are going to have to be some very tough discussions with the planning staff. I appreciate the work that all of you have done in terms of bringing this to us. And I do look forward to getting a membership in Costco again, and to welcoming you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Could I just make a comment? I'm a little troubled because I didn't get a sense that there's a real problem with parking that you expressed. And I think it's very important that the public get a sense of where we stand, because I know maybe Jen and I did differ a little bit, but I didn't get a sense that there's a big problem with this. So I don't know how you want to handle this, but I don't like it being just hanging out there like that.
I was expressing my opinion, Roger.
No,
Thank you.
referred
No,
to
from what I thought I heard from the board members, that parking per se was one of the major issues that they were having. Now, whether they like the parking, don't like the parking, it is there as an issue. It's been raised as an issue. And it comes down to how the parking that is in the sketch plan matches up with our ordinances. And we need to look at that very carefully. And we hope that, certainly I hope, that the applicant works with the planning staff to find a way to accommodate both the ordinances of the town of Scarborough and the manufacturer, excuse me, the developer and Costco.
We have been working with the developer and the staff.
I understand that, and I appreciate that and encourage you to continue to do that, because I hope we can move this forward.
If I could explain one thing related to the building size, because this is our current prototype. It's developed through the desires and the means of what our members are asking for. It's not going to get smaller. Those buildings that are 130,000 square feet are extremely deficient as far as they get overwhelmed and they become a problem. So we do not build the 130s anymore. Those are the ones from 20 plus years ago.
And as I said, we did not ask you to do that, but it is something to look at
Right.
as a way to resolve fitting your operation, your whole operation onto this site. In other words, there are many things that you can look at. You can increase size, you can decrease size, you can change the dimensions of the parking spaces, you can cut down on the number of parking spaces, you can change traffic patterns. In other words, there are a lot of ways that you really work to make this site work. And I'm encouraging you to continue to work with the planning staff to do that. When you come back to us with the site plan, I think I've outlined a couple of places where you really need to look at if you're going ahead with where you've got it lined up, that you need to look at for a waiver. And the responsibility for the burden of proof is on you for that. And you've said you've got a lot of data. I look forward to seeing it.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the item, number 6, Washville Car Wash requests a sketch plan review of a 135-foot tunnel car wash located at 491 Payne Road and 205 Southborough Drive, Assessors Map R037, lots 48E and 50. Eric?
Thank you. So Washville Car Wash is requesting a sketch plan review for a 135-foot tunnel car wash, parking and vacuum stalls at 205 Southborough Drive. The project also proposes a right-in, right-out access via Payne Road, which is an existing pizza restaurant. As part of the project, the pizza restaurant would be demolished and overflow parking for neighboring properties in the Southborough Office Park development. A brief background for the board. So this site was part of a planned development when the Southborough Office Park subdivision was created in the 1980s. And that is now home to Homewood Suites, which was approved by the board, I believe, in 2006, and Sebago Brewing from 2008. One of the main staff concerns for this project is the proposed site access via Payne Road, which by several standards in the zoning ordinance, including the plan development standards, is not particularly safe. Should the board wish to allow that access as it's existing from the pizza restaurant, mitigation and improvements on Payne Road to deter the left in, left out turn movement would be needed. Staff's also identified some commercial design standards that need to be adhered to that may reorient the car wash such that the entrance and exit doors don't face Payne Road. And we also have, there's a lot of stormwater concerns for the site come the formal site plan submission. With that, I'd turn it over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And for the developer?
Good evening.
Please state your name.
Yep, my name is Brady Carlucci. I'm representing Washville developer, as well as 7 Multi-Site Solutions, the engineer for the project. So to quickly go over, as noted, what we're proposing, 135-foot tunnel car wash located between those 2 parcels. One parcel currently is existing Pizza Plus restaurant that is in operation, as well as a portion of the lot designated as part of the Southborough.
You might want to get a little
sorry, yep.
closer to the mic.
Sorry. As part of the, I believe it is the Southborough Condominium Association there. So when first putting this site together, we had proposed strictly to have access along Payne Road, which it was identified through our discussions with members of the planning that option would not be amenable, and that a cross connection would be required or at least requested. So we have reworked our site plan to what we've presented today for your comment and review to mitigate some of the issues as seen on the Payne Road entrance, including right in, right out, as well as establishing cross connection with the Sebago Brewing and the Homewood Suites, and to offset the loss of some of the overflow parking that bleeds down onto the site that we're looking at.
that it?
That's it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. This is an item that is open for public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would care to comment?
And while we wait for the throngs of people to come up, I'll remind folks on the, in the virtual audience to use the raise the hand feature if they have any interest.
Do we have throngs out there?
Throngs, all 7. No hands up as of yet.
Okay. I'm silently counting down from 10.
Still nothing.
Public comment is closed. And we turn this over to the board. And a reminder that this is a sketch plan. Once again, it's a case of providing the applicant with a sense of where the board is and what the applicant needs to know on what they've proposed. So let me put Rick Meinking on the spot.
Since I'm a nerd, I guess I can go first. Is it cool to be a nerd nowadays? Okay. I'm having trouble visualizing this. Am I missing a plan that kind of looks down and gives me a aerial view of how this is laid out on the address of 491 Payne Road? Because I'm not seeing it and I'm losing a reference here.
So Rick, I've just brought up the site plan, which you may have. So Payne Road is, if you could see my mouse. Hard to- oh, wait, hang on, let me get rid of that.
Usually I thought the applicant would have walked me through this, so that's, bear with me. I was hoping to,
Payne Road is over here.
yeah,
The current pizza
yeah.
establishment is
Yep.
generally in this location.
Okay, so that parking lot there is where the pizza,
Yep.
by
And
the
so
way, that's good
Sebago-
pizza there.
Sebago is just off the
Yep,
screen, and Homewood Suites sort of back in, back up. off the
gotcha,
screen
gotcha.
there. Lazy Boy, I believe it is
Mm-hmm.
down here to the page south, I'll call it.
That's helpful looking at it from my Google as well as you're talking, so thank you for that. Now I've got to get to my other notes. Yeah, I think the staff has definitely indicated that there is some concern about the location of this based on the entrance. And I think they've given you some sort of guidance on there, and I would think you'd want to continue to work with staff on that. And while I'm not an expert in stormwater, it does appear that that's going to be certainly an issue that we will be addressing at the site plan level. So I would think you'd want to make sure those ducks are in their row by working with the staff on that. But I appreciate maybe another car wash coming into the town of Scarborough. It's probably a good distance from a car wash now, so maybe that's a good spot for one. But I think with the entrance, the way you had originally proposed, I do see where there could be some queuing issues, and we want to make sure, like the Aroma Joes of coming into town, and you just heard us about fuel station at Costco and the queuing. One doesn't have to drive down too often in Route 1 and find there's a queuing problem just to get to a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts on Route 1. So that's going to be something that you're going to have to get through this board and make sure that we're comfortable with that, because the last thing I want to do is fill in on the traffic patterns. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Jen.
Yeah, I have a question about the car wash itself. Are you intending, I don't think I read it in the materials. I apologize if I overlooked it. Is this going to include a blower system, like an air dry blower?
I can defer
At the
to
end.
Jim here for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, Board. My name is James Waterman. I represent Washville Car Wash. I'm the Executive Vice President, also one of the ownership. To address your question on dryers, yes, we will have a dryer system in play at this facility. That's correct.
Okay, thanks. So I share the concern raised in the staff memo then about the, the orientation of the bay, both in terms of, being aligned with Payne Road, but also the Homewood Suites, the hotel at the end. And so, on the one hand, presumably people staying here are here only for a short time, but I know this board has heard concerns in other parts of town from people who reside close to other types of car wash facilities and those blowers in particular in terms of the noise that they present. And so I am not an expert on noise, so I'm not, but I'm assuming that to reorient that building by 90 degrees or approximate could help alleviate some of that noise being directed back at the hotel. And or I don't know if there are other sort of different technologies or sound buffering type treatments that you may be able to consider either in place of turning the building or in conjunction with that. And
Would you like me to work through that? Because I can kind of answer to that piece now. So one of the things that's great about the technology piece that you talked about is we have multiple locations in the Northeast. We're over 12 locations now. And one of the things that we've done to try to mitigate concern for decibel levels, we do fall under most standards as a normal drying system that we would normally implement. But when we're in situations when we want to be amenable to neighbors, this being one of them, we actually have technology in a low decibel operating system. So believe it or not, you can actually talk on your cell phone next to our dryer system. So we've designed this tunnel to be in regards to mitigate those concerns on decibels.
okay, great. If you have, it might be helpful for the board to see a comparison table or something like that.
Sure
Maybe like
thing.
a standard system versus what you're proposing
Absolutely.
here, I think would be
Yep.
really helpful.
Okay.
And then the only other point I just want to reiterate, I guess, beyond the staff comment is that from our public safety folks and just anyone that spent any time on this section of Payne Road, I do agree that a write-in, write-out access, even write-in, write-out access on Payne Road here could present additional safety concerns, particularly for people who still think they want to take a left in. And you do have the advantage of having, connectivity out to the traffic signal at Southborough Drive. It's a little bit more circuitous, but I think in terms of, overall safety and probably ease of getting in and out of your site, that's a solid option for you to consider, perhaps in lieu of that limited access on Payne Road.
One of the things that we were thinking about here was really in from our first sketch plan review with Eric, I think you had made a recommendation about extending the median. We would absolutely be amenable to extending the median in order to prevent that left turn in, left turn out. And then obviously, we would love to keep the right turn in, right turn out, just because it does already exist at Pizza Plus. And, on a traffic opinion study that we've done initially, we find that our location is probably going to generate less trips than what's currently there. So we feel that there would be an improvement based on what's there now with the right in, right out.
And if I could just jump in real quick, one thing that I forgot to mention was that there have been previous project approvals for this plan development that have shown there's adequate access and capacity to access this site via Southborough Drive. So that has been kind of the precedent for these sites. And I mean, as you guys were saying, extending that median is certainly a mitigation option, but there are certainly safety concerns to consider for that Payne Road access. So I just wanted to clarify that before we went on.
Thank you, Eric. All right, thank you. Roger?
Thank you. Is this actually going to be located right where Pizza Plus is right now? On that site?
It's actually going to be the
To the south.
Yeah, to the south. Yep, the vacant, really the vacant area that's there now. And then the Pizza Plus would actually become what we're proposing as the overflow area for Sebago.
Roger, I'm roughly showing up on the screen and every once in a while a little yellow block comes up and I don't know why, so it's just stay
That's
up.
it? That's
Pizza
Pi-
Plus is probably up the screen just a hair from there, but that's the more general location of where the Pizza Plus building is, whereas the building they're proposing is here, right? So this is the
Okay.
queue lane, you come in,
Yeah, okay.
around and in, so. So
So-
no, it's
so
not,
the-
it's
so
it's
the,
on a
uh,
different parcel altogether, but it would share the access, or it would utilize that site for access and then park.
So this is very close to Lazy Boy then.
Yes, the queuing lanes would be correct
Okay.
along where Lazy Boy is.
And the curb cut is what's right there at Pizza Plus right now?
That's what exists currently. That's correct.
I'm trying to recall. There was another applicant before the board a couple of years ago. I forget what it was now.
You know, I have to be honest, I forget what the user was as well.
But this was a big issue. Having access going out onto Payne Road. That is such a busy road right there. And when I was reviewing this, I was thinking about, I use a car wash quite often. And especially when I travel, I always, when I'm staying at a hotel or something, I'm always looking for a place to get the car wash because the car's a mess after traveling all day. And I don't think anybody, my personal belief is nobody would have any difficulty finding this coming in off of Southborough Drive if you have the proper signage. I think signage can be a problem right there because sometimes it's difficult if you're not familiar with Sebago Brew, how to get the Sebago Brew, okay? But if they had proper signage right there, or better signage, that would help out. I think we should do everything we can to eliminate more vehicles getting out onto Payne Road. And frankly, I don't think it would hurt your business that much. People who are locals, they would become familiar with it. So I don't think, that's gonna be a big issue, the access onto Payne Road. I think we should eliminate that if we can. The other issue I see, and I don't know if this would require a waiver or they just can't do it. Did you consider shifting the building around the way the staff recommended?
Yeah, and it does not fit.
Why doesn't it fit? 'Cause I don't know where
With the
boundaries
length
are.
and the queuing distance, Brady, you can speak to it better than me.
Yeah, so.
He's the engineer.
Yep. So with the proposed tunnel length, when we try to rotate the site to 90 degrees, it would not permit us to have the proper turning radii to enter in through the queuing lane, specifically due to the, it's listed as the common area, but that is part of the stormwater management system for Sebago Brewing. So rotating the site 90 degrees would not be feasible from a traffic safety standpoint and traffic engineering.
Okay. From my perspective, frankly, I would rather see the building located where it is here. Just looking at a overhead door, than a lot, 135-foot concrete or whatever the structure is going to be along, parallel to Payne Road. I think that would be, preference would be the way it is now, but I'm not sure that can happen. That would require a waiver to do it the way they want to do it right now?
Correct. So that's in the commercial design standards. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
commercial design standards are not part of our zoning ordinance per se. So this board does have the ability to work with those as based on site characteristics or what have you. But those should, those are generally the starting point as staff laid out, and then it's up for the board to do your magic.
Okay. Well, I guess just to weigh in, I would prefer, my preference is to have it this way, looking at a narrow building, even though it has an overhead door, than a 135-foot building along Payne Road. So on this car wash, is this the kind of car wash where you go in and the car moves right along?
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. It's a tunnel car wash. So we typically process a vehicle out of the exit, usually about a minute or less.
Okay, because
Yep.
those are much more efficient, I think, than you just go in there and everything, the car doesn't move and everything goes around the vehicle. So
Yep.
That is the more efficient way. I'm not sure about the whole layout though of that whole place over there is kind of messed up. I mean, if, when you go, like, for instance, I was looking at this common area. I think I've actually parked in this common area.
Well, nope. If you have, then you were in the stormwater facility. That's
I was wondering why it was
that's a
wet.
little swale. Where? Yeah, that's.
I think both,
This is-
I think
mean,
most of that is just gravel. I mean, kind of on the northern side, close to that common area where
Yeah.
Jay's kind of circling is
This area is
gravel at this point.
So Roger, if you see where my mouse is, this sort of area, oop, no, I went too far. I gotta look down here, sorry. This sort of area is just gravel. This area that, again, common area, you wouldn't have parked in here, it's surrounded by guardrails and such.
oh, it is?
Yeah, you would have done something special to get in there. So you're probably back in this area.
I went through the broken guardrail. For instance, anyways, I've been over there when Sebago Brew's been, packed with vehicles and cars are trying to find parking spaces everywhere. And I know I've parked in some strange places over there. So I would think, I don't know, when this was originally designed, Jay, were you around then? When this was originally set up? I think it was before your time, right?
So I was here for the Sebago Brewing
Okay.
approval, which actually created the 3-lot condominium as that unified development. Previous to that, it was all one ownership, as I recall it, with the Homewood Suites, whoever. I think it was actually called Dorks or Us. I've never forgotten that LLC name. So.
Okay. And it was always designed to go out onto Southborough Drive, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Because I know now, if you go by Sebago Brew, you can loop around and go through the parking lot of the hotel to get over there as well. So to me, those are the two issues, Payne Road and the location of the building, the site of the building. So those are my 2 cents right now.
Yeah, in regards to the comment on the waiver for the vacuum stalls being considered vehicle maintenance, we would argue the fact that we don't believe that any vehicle maintenance takes place at the vacuum stalls. Just like any other car wash that's here in Scarborough, you have 2. These vacuums that already exist, they do face the road as a precedence on those older ones. I understand that, future developments in why the board would seek to maybe mitigate those in the future. But these are very high-tech vacuums in consideration to maybe what you're used to. These are an overhead central vacuum that are boomed. The hose hangs from an overhead structure. And that overhead structure makes it for a very clean, crisp look. And it also gives our customers the ability to conveniently vacuum out their vehicle from either side and do it in a fast and efficient way. The only service that we provide at those vacuum stalls is a vacuum system. That's it. So there's no other facility available other than a trash receptacle. So we would argue that it's not necessarily considered a maintenance under the way that we read it. So that would be one concern that we would have is to try to work with the board on the current layout being perpendicular to Payne Road.
Yes, I'm all set.
All right. Karen?
So he just said one of the waivers that they applied was for vehicle maintenance. Is that correct? And they're,
So that's standard from the town's commercial design standards. So just like with the orientation of the building, that's something that the board could waive. Or I guess if, we determine that the vacuum doesn't constitute vehicle maintenance, I guess that would be non-applicable. so to
I'd
speak?
love to know the legal definition
Yeah,
of vehicle maintenance.
And again, it's really more about, so if you read the design standards, it's really talking about service areas, and it goes on to say, talks about vehicle service. And I could pull it up, but it lists a number of things. So it's, I think it's really about those areas that aren't just parking stalls. It's sort of those.
So I think
yeah,
my
wouldn't
question
call
was,
it
so this
vehicle
is,
maintenance. I
so this
would
is
agree with
normal
that.
for any car wash in Scarborough to look for a waiver if they need it to have under the veil of vehicle maintenance. Is that correct? Or is it because of
I-
this location in the zone that they're in?
I can't recall that we've actually approved a freestanding car wash since I've been on the board, which was about 2014 or 15. So it might have happened, but it's long enough ago that standards could have changed and.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm sort of new,
Yeah.
just kind of getting my feet wet.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question. I'm just thinking that I can't recall such a thing coming to the board.
Yeah.
We've looked at car washes, and I think what Jen was referring to was the Volvo and Volvo car wash and questions with the neighbors, but that was attached to
Right.
another site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So,
only one I
just-
think of is
just-
the one right down here
I
that's
was-
similar, right?
I was going to actually reflect more on the one up at Ginn Road, at exit 42, at the intersection of Payne and Higas Parkway. It's accessory to or part of a gas station. And I know this board had very similar discussions around the issues. The design standards in the time, called for gas pumps to be in the rear of the building, not to have the overhead doors face the building, to have service areas sort of out back. Based on those site characteristics and the determination board at the time, the design is what it is. And so that's the work for this board based on the characteristics of this site to figure out what that best arrangement is and what fits best with the expectations.
Thank you. I think the town has identified the issues and the concerns. I think probably the only concern that I'll reiterate is sort of the right-hand turn and pulling in and out. I think there's definitely some more work that needs to be done. I think generally, I hate to take a piece of property that someone wants to develop and improve and put something on, and I almost feel like we're very restricting it if we completely take away their access on Payne Road, but it's also what they want to do there. If it was the lazy boy, we wouldn't be worried about as many people coming in and out. And I think I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out with the amount of volume that they have and the amount of people coming and going. I mean, that is a really tough spot on Payne Road right there. So I'd like to see kind of where we go with that.
Thank you. And Chad?
Yeah, very similar thoughts here. I am certainly concerned with the Payne Road approach. And also, what are the hours of operation here? Is this,
We would be operating from 7:30 to 7:30 generally, and then on Sundays, we would be 8 to 5.
yeah, I'm just noticing the nighttime renderings and curious there.
All of our lighting would be dark sky compliant. Naturally, it's just naturally how we design our building.
And also curious, certainly with signage and wayfinding on the site here. So cool with that.
All right, thank you. Let me talk about the Payne Road, understanding how people work. Once there's that entrance or opportunity to enter, that's where folks are going to enter to get to Sebago Brewing, who are coming from Payne Road. They're not going to go up to Southborough Road and turn. They're going to take that opportunity. So the traffic that we would see getting, at least going into that site from Payne Road heading north would be, I think, reasonably a fair amount more than just people coming to the car wash. In the standards, we do indicate that where there are two possible entrances to a site, the entrance should be on the road that has the least amount of traffic, and that's Southborough Road, which is already signalized. So I don't see the need for the Payne Road. I understand why folks might want it, but we have a perfectly good entrance and exit out to a signalized traffic and on a road that simply can handle the extra traffic coming from this site. If there is no entrance or exit off of Payne Road, then there is no need for that amount of space to be used for a passageway, which would then allow for the room for the car wash to be built parallel to Payne Road rather than at 90 degrees. And that would also allow the opportunity, I suspect, for the option for the vacuums areas to be in the back of the building. I'm concerned about 3 lanes of traffic, 3 lanes, access lanes into the building. All of a sudden you have a pinch point, you're going from 3 to 1 right then. In terms of people, I guess, paying at a kiosk and then moving onto the to the queuing lane for the building. Is that correct?
That's correct, but the technology doesn't allow a choke point. So the technology allows cars to enter as a transaction becomes complete. So just like you would be maybe at a parking garage, we have what we call merge loops and gates. Our merge loops and gates control the traffic. We also always have an attendant out at the tellers themselves to help direct, but we have an automated system that would prevent any kind of traffic jam, so to speak. We want to keep the vehicles queued up correctly so that the wash that particular customer paid for is what they would get when they entered the wash facility. So it's all automated through our computer system to help mitigate that concern.
All right, certainly when you do a regular site plan, that sort of information is very helpful.
Okay.
As we look at that, knowing what steps you're taking to mitigate some questions or some issues that we have. If technology is the answer, give us the technology.
Understood.
And that's, as I said, that's very helpful to us. Nobody has brought up yet the question of the architecture. We've talked about the garage door facing the street, which is, not recommended certainly in the design standards, but nobody has talked about the actual view of the building. And as I look at it, what I am not clear that I see is a relationship between that building and the building next to it, to Sebago, let's say, in terms of architecture, or Lazy Boy, because it's all of a sudden it's a new building in between 2 others, and it has very distinct architecture all on its own. And we do like to pay attention to the abutters and the relationship of a new building to the abutters in terms of the architecture. So I really would urge you to take a look at the other buildings that would be next to it and consider what you can do to kind of harmonize this building, this new building with what's there. And keeping in mind the New England vernacular as you go along and the design standards that we have. We do have commercial design standards. Double check those. I don't recall seeing essentially a sort of a barn visual coming to us before, so I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's something that's kind of different, and
we build all over New England and in Long Island, and one of my comments back to that is almost every town in New England does have a barn. So the gambrel roof is extremely popular roof line structure. The silo structure is kind of something that we try to do to mitigate on height, but also set the building apart, and it's part of our brand. To be quite honest with the board, I mean, this is our brand. We won't mitigate or change our brand to meet design standards. We feel that they fall within line. And the Payne Road access for us is a no-go for development. So if that got taken away, we would have to forego our interest in the project. We want to work with the board. We think we're solving some very big issues on Payne Road with extending that median and being amenable to that. Also creating the cross easement, taking a piece of property that's been on the market for a while, that hasn't been able to be developed, to give the town a great tax base and to provide a really high-tech car wash to the community. We operate in Brunswick, we operate in Augusta, we have other sites coming into Southern Maine right now. And we are big community advocates. We employ people. We give to local sports. We're very charitable. You can kind of look us up online. We're one of the biggest donors to the Mother Against Drunk Driving in our Long Island sites. So we really take a lot of pride to be our hometown car wash because that's our motto. So, I heard what the board has recommended, and we would love to work with you all to try to come up with a solution. But some of the recommendations are kind of a non-starter for us to develop going forward. I think that we can work with you guys. And that Pizza Plus, the right in, right out, it already exists. They've already asked us, but we're going to knock their building down to extend the lease there. So they want to stay there. And we plan on generating less trips than Pizza Plus is currently. But I do understand and agree with the board that with the cross easement that people will go into that right in with the intention to visit Sebago Brewing. So with that being said, we can probably work through some sort of solution, but the building becoming parallel to the road, I think, to one of the members' points, would probably not be something that the board would like. One of the things that's really unique about our car wash is we do have windows to let in natural light so that the customer feels comfortable when they're in our tunnel, but we also create kind of a light show. So we have lights that are confined within our tunnel, and that light would come outside of the window. And I think that, quite honestly, the town would probably not like to see that light show that happens inside of our tunnel for our paying customers outside along the road. So I think the perpendicular creates the ability to not have that. So I appreciate the fact that we're in the sketch plan review and we're going to take all the considerations that you've made. But I think unless some of those things are amenable between us, I don't think it's a project that we can move forward with.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I was just curious as to the design that you have and you are throughout New England. Are they all exactly the same? Is this your design? Are they all designed this way with the barn?
Yeah, moving forward, this is our design. Yep.
Thank you. And please work with the planning board, the planning staff. And hopefully we will see you back.
All right. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Mayetta Construction requests a final land reclamation review for a wetland restoration project as part of an approved EPA mitigation plan at 150 Pleasant Hill Road, assessors map R078, lot 50A. Eric?
Thank you. Mayetta Construction is requesting a final land reclamation review, for site work in accordance with a Maine DEP and EPA approved work plan. This would consist of restoration and stabilization measures for 4 wetland areas on the property. Work outside of these 4 areas would involve fill removal, grading, and installation of stormwater facilities. No further development is proposed on site at this time. And at the preliminary review meeting in January, the applicant was asked to provide further stormwater information and zoning detail on the site plan, which has been clarified. And with that in mind, staff has prepared a draft motion for the planning board's review. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And for the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Amy Bell Siegel from Sebago Technics, here with Vinny Mayetta from Mayetta Construction. And I can step through the sort of response to comments if that's what you'd like to do. There's pretty brief comments, so I'll go through those. So as Eric mentioned, we neglected to put the zoning line on the previous plan. So we now have the line between industrial and rural residents farming on the plan. It's about 300-foot setback from Highland Ave. We are officially requesting a waiver of the steep slope standard. It's 4-to-1 in the land reclamation ordinance, and we've shown it as 2-to-1, and that's in that A zone area, sort of between the wet pond and the fill slope down to the restored wetlands. So we would need that waiver. We'll be stabilizing it, and I think Angela's looked at that, and that's all set. We've submitted copies of the 2 permit by rules that we submitted to DEP. One is section 12 NRPA for the restoration of the natural areas, and then a stormwater PBR. Though we have the receipts back that we included, I emailed it off to Eric, so we're all set with those. Again, we've been working with DEP and EPA through this process, so they're quite aware of what's happening. Let's see, scrolling down here. So the other question was a little bit more to provide a little bit more information about how the design that went into sizing the wet pond. So we provided a little bit more details and some actual numbers in there, but essentially it's designed to accommodate about 80% of the area of the 19 acres that are there, about 80% of impervious surface and 20% landscaping area. So those are the assumptions that went into sizing that. And again, we're not proposing any development right now, but that wet pond would accommodate any development that would occur. And that would, of course, come back to the planning board through the site plan review process. And I think there was a page numbering error that we noted. And in the signage that was picked up by Woodard and Curran. So there'll be small sort of conservation area signs that'll be placed, and we've shown them on the plan. We have 4 that what we have right now. One is kind of up near the wet pond, and then one off of Highland Ave, and one on either side. I think it makes sense to have 4. Might be too many, but might be just by the wet pond and Highland Ave. But again, those are small signs. It'll be white text on green, and it'll be set back from Highland Ave. It won't be a real obvious thing, but the idea is that all of this area, after it gets restored, will be subject to the conservation restrictions. And I think that's about it. So, yeah.
Thank you. This item is subject to public comment. Is there anybody in the room who's going to charge forward with a public comment? Jay? Is there anyone online?
We have a few folks online, 4 folks.
I will start a countdown to give them a few seconds to raise their hand.
And none have raised their hand.
All right, in that case, the public comment period is over. I will turn this over to the board in general. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I have a draft motion. I move to approve the project titled Mayetta Wetland Restoration and Planting proposed by Mayetta Construction as depicted on the plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 2/28/22 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the proposed project takes corrective measures for unpermitted activity on the site. These measures include restoration and stabilization within several project areas as part of a consent decree with Maine DEP and the EPA. Work outside of these 4 areas will consist of fill removal, grading, and the installation of a wet pond stormwater BMP. No further development is proposed on the site at this time. Waivers, number 1, permit the appropriate stabilized steep slopes on site to be greater than a 2-to-1 ratio as authorized by state and federal agencies. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, my draft motion has some conditions.
Yeah, that was passed out incorrectly.
Okay.
It was changed after that was done.
That must have been my mistake. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I sent Rachel a revised one this afternoon.
and it's a 2-to-1, I understood from the applicant, 2-to-1, and it had 4-to-1 here on the.
Yep, so it is, it would permit slopes greater than 2-to-1. And
Greater
before
than
it said greater than 4-to-1. But they're 4-to-1 slopes, which are greater than 2-to-1.
Yeah, okay. That's it.
All right, okay. Any other questions? None? Doreen, please call the roll.
Rachel Hendrickson.
Yes?
Roger Beely.
Yes.
Rick Montagne.
Yes.
Karen Shu.
Yes.
And Chad Reed.
Chad is not voting.
Roger Beely.
Oh, didn't you hear me?
I think you just forgot Jennifer.
I'm gonna vote twice.
I'm a yes.
You can't vote twice.
Are we straight on the voting? Okay, good. Thank you. That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
As near as I can tell, although Roger may have voted twice. And moving on. Yeah.
I'm not perfect. Let the record show.
Number 8, Miser Investments LLC requests a site plan review for a drive-through coffee establishment and retail commercial building at 451 Payne Road, Assessors Map R037, Lot 14A. Eric.
Thank you. So Miser Investments, otherwise known as the Martin's property in town, has submitted a site plan to construct a 5,600 square foot structure that would be composed of 2 storefronts for a commercial space and a 3rd tenant space for a proposed drive-through coffee shop. Staff has provided comment on several commercial design standards that we've actually talked about in depth tonight on varying projects, including the orientation of the drive-through facing away from public roads and screening for HVAC systems. Additional detail on stormwater management and capacity on site is also needed. The project is currently going through its review of a traffic movement permit by Maine DOT. That's ongoing, and town staff is being involved in that. A scoping meeting is currently being scheduled between the applicant, DOT, and the town staff, but that has yet to be booked. The town and its peer traffic engineer reviewer were not able to provide comment on a lot of these traffic TMP materials as revised versions were submitted a bit later than we were able to accommodate. And the TMP would be required as part of any possible review approval, excuse me. And with that, I'd turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And for the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. It's nice to see you all this evening. My name is Henry Hess. I'm a landscape architect with Sebago Technics. Here tonight on behalf of Miser Investments LLC. With me tonight as well is Mr. Nathan Mangan, also a representative of Miser Investments LLC. As Eric briefly stated, the proposed project will be about a 5,000 square foot building with 3 tenant spaces, one of which for a drive-through coffee shop. Located on the corner of Gallery Boulevard and Payne Road in Scarborough. It's located on the northern side of the parking lot, near that intersection of Gallery and Payne Road. It's currently, the site's accessed from two locations, one at Spring Street and one along Payne Road there, the Martin's entrance. Payne Road of which is signalized currently. There are sidewalk connections, if I could zoom in here. Sidewalk connections proposed as part of the site plan application along Gallery Boulevard, as well as a connection to Payne Road for pedestrian access from either direction there. Currently today, you know the site as that large vacant, or shouldn't say vacant, but large open and underutilized corner of the parking lot. The project itself is taking that parking lot and proposing about a 13,000 square foot reduction in the impervious surfaces in this corner of the parking lot. And those reductions come in the form of landscaping for the building, larger landscape islands towards the end of the parking lot, as well as an enhanced planting screen along Gallery Boulevard. Screen certainly will be designed to include year-round 4 seasons of interest, provide some buffering to the building itself, as well as the aesthetic value. The project is currently proposing this building along the edges about as close as feasible to the setbacks in the corners along Gallery Boulevard and Payne Road. The goal of that is to use the building to minimize the impacts or minimize the visual impacts of the parking lot itself. As part of the commercial design standards, we're trying to get that building close to that corner as feasible to meet that standard, still allowing for access lanes and drive-through lanes around the building as well. While the queuing line is proposed along Gallery Boulevard, I know we had discussed this a little bit during the sketch plan, and I appreciated all the board's feedback at that time as well. The queuing line along that side of Gallery Boulevard does provide a little bit better vehicular access to the site, as well as it allows the building itself to be used as that visual screen to the parking lot without creating an internal circulation that might create conflicts with parking and access to the buildings as well. Let's see, what else we have here. As such, I know we had discussed a little bit on the sketch plan that some screening is certainly going to be required if we're going to be addressing any sort of queuing lines along that side of Gallery Boulevard. We have tried to provide the board with a little bit more of a colored visual of what that landscape plan will look like, but it certainly will include a number of evergreen trees, a number of deciduous trees and ornamental, as well as a mix of evergreen shrubs and perennials and ground cover. And the goal, of course, is to not create a dense wall, but provide a perforated screen to provide coverage from the cars in the queuing lanes, as well as hide portions of the building without creating any dark corners themselves to alleviate any potential safety issues as well. The screening of this nature is also connects the rest of Gallery Boulevard to this section. Gallery Boulevard itself does have a number of different evergreen trees and deciduous trees that provide screening and buffering from other businesses along Gallery Boulevard. And this would be considered kind of an extension of that and create a little bit more continuity as well along Gallery Boulevard. As for the utilities, they're currently proposed coming in from Payne Road, the 2-inch domestic water line and a 4-inch fire service line. In addition to the water, is 4-inch sewer line coming in off Payne Road. Certainly coordination for gas with Unitil will be also coming off of Payne Road as well. The site's currently the treatment on the site for the parking lot as it exists today, it's outletted to a stormwater pipe that exists going underneath Gallery Boulevard here, at least in this portion of the site. There is another detention pond around the back of Martin's that handles another portion of the parking lot. This portion is handled by the detention pond across Gallery Boulevard. The site is proposing to tie into that existing pipe, as well as provide treatment for a number of square feet, or a total about 24,000 square feet of impervious surfaces and landscape area from the development area that's occurring in this corner. So currently there's detention provided for the existing parking lot and the runoff from that detention, and it will also be providing treatment as part of an improvement in this project. Those improvements and those treatments shall be treated with currently proposed as a Filterra tree system that allows not only aesthetic value to provide a tree filter or a tree grate along the Payne Road side, but also provide that treatment through proprietary medias as the stormwater filters down through it. In addition, there will be a bioretention area shown on plan just to the right of the building on plan, and that'll provide some detention and treatment of the roof runoff as well. Again, planted with perennials, grasses, and flowers to provide an aesthetic value as well. I would like to quickly, we can look at some of the initial comments provided by staff. We certainly are in the middle of going through a number of them at the moment, as we did just receive them on this past week. But as Eric stated, we're certainly still working with the DOT and getting that scoping meeting. We'll certainly be coming forth with any response to comments here that will include a waiver for the 24-foot wide drive aisle. 24-foot wide drive aisle allows a slight reduction in impervious surfaces and it's still adequate for maneuvering out of 90-degree parking stalls. The commercial design standards, I addressed them briefly. I know we talked a bit at length during our sketch plan review as well, with the fact that this building does put a drive-through facing Gallery Boulevard. Part of that is kind of a mixture of trying to get the building close to the corner there and address the street and address the corner with the building, as well as alleviate any vehicular or internal conflicts that might be created by having the drive-through wrap around the inside of the parking lot as well. In addition to having that internal circulation, if the drive-through were to flip, or as we've shown, I believe in the sketch plan, we expose the drive-through to Payne Road and the queuing lines to Payne Road, which are much longer, much larger visual impact to a major street there on Payne Road. So sitting on the corner here, it's a little hard to orient the drive-through without exposing some sort of queuing lane and drive-through window to one of the streets. The architectural elevations have some provided this evening. Oh, wow, look at that. Have some provided this evening to provide a little bit more information on that, as I did see that come up as a comment. Currently, the proposal is to have wood siding on the top, majority of the entrance areas to each space would be in glass here, glass, and in the top being wood here. The bottom is proposed currently to, the bottom half is currently proposed to be a brick that is painted black. And the top portion here, if I could, let me just go upward a little bit so you guys can actually see it. Top portion here is actually, it's a engineered sort of synthetic smooth finish stucco that's been used in multiple locations, but this is currently what they're looking to do. It's a little bit of a smooth finish as opposed to a rough. So you have brick and then a smooth exterior wall adjacent to the wood trim and the glass windows. If I could go through a couple of the architectural renderings too, that of the site, I will note these renderings are representative of the current building, but not necessarily the current site layout. You will see some inconsistencies with things potentially with no landscaping shown in some areas where the landscape plan does show landscape. So here we are facing the southwest face of the building, the entrance to the drive-through coffee shop with the patio. And to the right there, the potential future tenant spaces. Near the southeast face of the building, you're just seeing the other side of the front of the building, showing the interior of the parking lot here. And again, as we round the corner, this would be kind of to the right is that drive-through queuing lane. Here on the back side of the building, again, showing some of that wood trim, the brick lower half, and then that smooth finish at the top. And the drive-through lane all the way at the very end there, or sorry, the drive-through window at the very end. Here we are is wrapping that northwest face of the building. You'll see the drive-through window, the walk-up window as well for pedestrians that is connected to that patio. And here's a little bit better view of that, where you have the walk-up window to the far left of that face of the building, access door, and patio with seating, umbrellas, and other items for pedestrians to sit. So that's just kind of a brief walkthrough of some of the renderings of the building. I did note in the comments that it looks like there was an existing conditions plan that did not make it into your packets. We'll make sure that that's included with any response to comments, as I believe that should help clarify some of the other comments that were listed from staff. We'll certainly be coming forth with the fire department turning radius and vehicular movements to make sure that we can show that a fire truck shall be able to make the movements around the building and circulate through the parking lot. And I believe with that, we've covered a majority of them. We'll certainly be providing a little bit more information on snow storage and fencing as well, with the coming response to comments. But with that, I can turn my presentation over to the board for any comment and follow up with the board.
Thank you. I am going to hold the public comment period now. And following that, before the board makes its comments and observations, we'll take a 5-minute break. We usually try to break at 8:30 and I kind of missed that time. So the public comment period is open. Do we have anybody who would like to make a comment? Do we have anyone online?
We have 4 folks left online. And I'm not seeing any hands go up, so do your internal clock countdown however you wish.
Public comment period is over. We'll take a 5-minute break from whatever that clock says. The board is back in session. And now we will move to board comments. Who would like to go first? Bunch of shy people. All right, I'm going to shut, yeah, good idea. I'm going to start at the other side. Chad?
A couple of questions. Hours of operation here.
I believe there'll be, I can't speak to exact hours of operation myself. Nathan, do you perhaps by chance know the Starbucks hours of operation? Okay. I'd say I would assume certainly the 6 a.m. time frame, they're probably open till at least 5 or 6 in the evening.
Okay. And then I take it the signs would be internally illuminated?
Yes, yes.
And are there any other signs on site with regards to Starbucks? Or-
That is a great question. Right now, we're currently coordinating some of the directional signage with the Starbucks corporate themselves. We are looking to get to the TMP scoping meeting with the DOT. As any improvements that happen or might be required from that meeting, we'll certainly like to incorporate with any sign locations.
And then exterior lighting, is there?
There is a
photometrics, but
certainly, yeah, there is a photometric plan that was provided as part of the application. But briefly on the site plan, the building is proposed to be lit with wall packs. That again, I can show you a little bit more of a visual of that in the rendering. And certainly not from that close up.
is there coverage for the patio area?
Yes, there will be coverage for the patio area in terms of lighting coverage.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly there'll be some ambient light coming off the interior itself. And there is an alternative that there may be some sort of hanging, or I'm going to call it a patio style lighting, string lighting.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Karen?
I don't really have any questions. I feel like they've addressed some of the concerns we have. It feels like at this point, some of the issues and stuff that we're dealing with are rather minor. I think no situation will ever be exactly perfect. And I think they've done a really good job at using a space that is just sitting there in blank and trying to use what they can best for it.
Thank you. Roger?
First, I wanted to say, I think the building looks terrific. It'll be the most attractive building in the whole area right there, I think. Can you go to the screen that shows the side of the building? Having said that, okay, the side that is on Gallery Boulevard,
Not that.
the backside,
Yep, I'm working on it here.
because I think that really looks attractive. Yeah. Now, is there anything you can do about that though? Because that looks like one big blank wall.
It's a great question. We can certainly look into what that may be, but at the moment, I don't know how much that can be changed at the moment. But we can certainly look into
Breaking
it.
Up between the all black, or charcoal, whatever it is,
Mhm.
just 2 different color schemes or something. I don't have a problem with the drive-through right there. I mean, it is what it is, that's where it's got to be. So I think if you could do something, because that's going to be what some people are going to be seeing. That's how most likely go. I was thinking as you're talking about the drive-through, actually, one of the things I'm amazed at how many people queue up to get a cup of coffee in this town. And so being right there, they can make a decision whether they want to come in or not by looking at that. But I think the building looks really nice. I want to go back to something at the previous meeting. I thought we had a discussion about that closest access point on Spring Street. And didn't we decide not to to discourage that, or do you recall?
So that was a staff comment at the sketch level review. It really wasn't brought forward during the site plan comments. I didn't really get a sense that, I guess staff didn't really get a sense that it was something that the applicant wanted to pursue, or the board was thinking of requiring. But that was something that was in our previous comments, and certainly if the board wants to see that, they should have that conversation with the applicant.
Because the one that's further down on Spring Street, that's the one that goes into where Walmart is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. The one, so it's the northerly most
Yeah, we're talking about
entrance that was previously discussed.
Right.
It's a right in, right out, and there's often a lot of vehicles that turn left
Right. Didn't we-
out of there.
We had that discussion about that, right? You're probably anxious to jump all over that, right? So I'll leave that alone then. Let's see. I think a lot of these, I agree with Karen. I think a lot of these you'll probably get cleaned up just talking, dealing with staff on this. So. I mean, the concerns of the fire department and, and like the pavement, the cuts on Payne Road, the 3 cuts on there. Did you talk about that?
Certainly, yeah. It's currently there'd be, 3 utilities proposed, and typically that would be 3 cuts. We can certainly look at how those utilities are coming in from Payne Road and see if we can make that, again, to work with staff and understand we can just make a wider, there'll certainly be separate trenches, but the repavement will be a wider strip going across Payne Road. Right now, I believe they're shown as 3 separate cuts.
Does that have more to do with what's on the other side of Payne Road?
It'll depend a little bit as to how we're able to tie into the sewers in terms of actual invert locations on the sewer mains. That's probably the one constraint, but I think we can work with that constraint and work with staff to make that particular area be repaved appropriately to make Payne Road the least amount of impact to the paving there as possible.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I think you get most of the stuff cleaned up with staff, and I think the building looks terrific. And it's a good use of that property. And again, just that one wall. One black wall, if you could do something to break that up a bit.
I appreciate that feedback.
Satisfy me. Well said.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Well, I have a suggestion for the back wall, maybe, or a question, and you can do with it what you like. I'm curious why, well, let me flip to the landscaping plan here. It looks as though on part of the backside of the building, you're proposing landscaping, but not the other part. And I was just curious maybe why that is, and or whether or not you could just extend that planting area a bit. And if you put something tall there, then it may help to kind of break that up visually.
That's a great comment. Thank you. Right now we're showing that proposed as a walkway for utility rooms and access, as well as for the potential for somebody working there to leave out the rear exit, as well as again just providing multiple points of egress for the building. That for the other half, their utility room is actually located in the front, and that's what this particular walkway is here. It's a utility room for that Starbucks drive-through and coffee shop. Whereas these have the main entrance and then the utility doors to the rear, and that's where that sidewalk comes into play for egress across and
How
out.
wide is it?
How wide is it?
The sidewalk, yeah.
The sidewalk's about 5 feet. We do have bollards, so it does drop down to 4.5 where the bollards are.
Did we see this as part of was there like a larger plan for the site at some point, or am I imagining?
Yeah, at sketch plan, we had looked at, or I believe we had shown kind of a larger, what would potentially be future development along the Payne Road side.
Okay, is that still, I understand, obviously, we're looking at this piece of that, but is there still a desire or effort happening to sort of move towards that at some point?
Certainly, yeah. I know that's still something that the applicant and Miser Investments would like to do in the future.
Okay. I thought that was a great, I appreciated the look at the master plan because I think that it helps kind of tie this together with the other activity that's already happening on the site. And I liked some of the changes that you were proposing, at least at that time, in terms of modifications to the entrance out at the signal on Payne Road. I can't remember if that concept plan included it, and if it didn't, I'm going to throw it out as something that you either consider at this stage or further down the road. But I do think it would be great to have some sort of pedestrian connection between this new building and the existing building. It probably need not be at every row, but just at some point, an option for people to kind of park once and do two things if they wanted. And on the topic of pedestrians, really just purely a comment, but I'm such a fan of the outdoor space proposed as part of this project. You don't have a ton of room to work with, but I just think that the thought given to people wanting to, be outside. I don't know. We have a lot of coffee shops that have outdoor space, but I just think this one's sort of thoughtfully laid out. And then the addition of the walk-up window is just a really thoughtful inclusion, I think. And part of what leads me to a comment about connecting this with other or future activity on site is because you are accommodating that. I mean, this is a drive-through business all day long, but you're saying through design, like, hey, also come and sit down, and you can walk up and get a coffee if you want. So I think that's great, particularly given, this isn't necessarily the most pedestrian friendly areas of town, but you are creating that within this very small space. And so this one will stick with me for a while in terms of like a good, ways that can be achieved in small areas in a larger context that maybe isn't something that we would consider walkable. But I just nod to that element. I did just have a question. Actually, I think it came up in one of the staff comments as well about the pipe connection across Gallery Boulevard. And I think you said early on that you are tying into that, but it kind of looks like you're replacing the whole thing.
Yeah, I can speak to that. The intent is that we're tying into
It also
the,
looks like it only comes halfway across the road.
yeah, the pipe currently does come all the way across the road. I can certainly assure of that, as I know the drainage does make its way over to the pond. But that's a great comment. And I will say the intent is to tie into it by one of the existing structures. The structure will be updated, but
Like
certainly
on your site? Or will
correct.
you
Yep,
be
on
tying
the
across?
parking lot side there. I am remiss in the fact that I don't think one of my renderings here show it, but I can point generally to where it is. It is on the grading and utility plans. That catch basin where it ties in is right about here. Can you even see that?
I can see it, yeah. I'm looking at it.
Okay.
At the back edge of the edge of the paved area.
Correct, yeah. And that does tie into the existing pipe on plans. When we draw that in what's called a pipe network, I was looking at it after I saw the comment. It does look like it's a proposed pipe. That is certainly just how the line work showed up, and we'll certainly look to show that more as an existing pipe as we can.
As a CAD user, I can sympathize with that.
Thank you for the comment.
I was just curious how much of Gallery Boulevard you were going to be paving or not paving. So that's answers to that question.
The intent is to try not to impact Gallery Boulevard.
Okay, great. And then let's see, ped connection. Yeah, I think that's that. Roger brought up the right in, right out on Spring Street, which, yeah, I do also remember talking about at the last meeting, probably as part of that larger site plan conversation. I see this from both sides. As an applicant, you are arguably not making any other changes at that location. As a planning board member and in defense of our standards and ordinances, my understanding is that any project like this opens the entire site up to, conversation about access management and things like that. And I guess I would say, if this access continue with the addition of these new uses in this corner, if this access continues to present any additional safety concerns or confusion within the parking lot, it's definitely something that I would be looking to see remedied in like a future build out phase of that larger master plan. Similarly with some of the concepts that you've already shown with the entrance improvements at the Payne Road access site. But I do remember commenting before about how it is sort of confusing now. I don't think anybody can argue against that. And I think that, if where there was really nothing of desire, no reason for people to sort of go to this part of the parking lot, you may now see more of that traffic coming in and off of Spring Street. And so what was like maybe kind of a little confusing and a little problematic before, I just think it's something that, the town with regard to Spring Street operations, but certainly, as a private owner of the site would just want to keep an eye out for. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Rick?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll be quick because my colleagues have gone through the gamut. I'm just going to talk about the photometrics and the lighting for a moment. First of all, it'd be great to see a min-max on the photometrics, just so we got a sense of how bright this whole area is going to end up. So I would ask for that in the next submission. And I'm a little concerned about dead spots in the parking lot on the retail side, away from the Starbucks operation, but you've got some curbing and then you've got no light at all. And I'm a little concerned in terms of safety, if that could be addressed. Kind of, you've got a little bit coming off where the Starbucks and the outside sitting area, but the parking lot down on the other end is really dark. So I don't know, on the islands that you show here, are there existing lights on those islands?
See if I can back out a little bit here. They're not actually in the islands per se. The existing light, I can highlight it here for you. The existing light on that side of the parking is right there currently.
Yeah, that's probably going to be too far. You can see where your mouse is right now. That's really dark.
Mm-hmm. Right up here.
Yeah. And that area probably, I don't know, maybe a bollard or something like that, that can at least take care of some of that depth perception here. But I'm just wondering, even in your drive aisle, if you've got people walking across into the bigger parking lot, I'm not worried about abutters on this case, and we don't need instant cutoff, but there's nothing. So I'd like to see what might be done, whether it means you're going to have to put some pole light in those islands to take care of that. That might be necessary, but I don't like to add a lot of lights, but I also don't want people run over because nobody can see them.
Certainly. Yeah, we'll certainly evaluate that photometric and take a look at that and see if we find a dark spot there, we'll certainly illuminate it and make that photometric a little bit more balanced.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll consider that and we'll take a look at it.
That's all I have. Everything else has been covered.
Thank you. I have the staff noted a question around the flat roof line and whether they're going to be roof mounted hood systems or HVAC systems.
Any HVAC systems that get mounted on the roof shall be screened, and we'll certainly provide any sort of information with any response to comments for you guys.
All right, yeah, if you can show how that's going to work, I appreciate that.
Certainly.
I've got another question. The walkway off of Gallery Boulevard leads up to two different crosswalks. And one of the crosswalks just kind of ends at the building and I assume it's there for the folks in the, to come out the rear doors. But I would suspect that people coming up coming up from walking along Gallery Boulevard will also do that so they can walk around the building to Scarborough, to Starbucks. So I think you're going to need to put in a walkway, something that connects that crosswalk to the front of the property.
Are you talking about, I guess, I want to be clear on the location. Are you talking about this particular area here?
I really can't.
Oh, sorry. It's in
I'm
yellow
talking about the crosswalk
in the rear here on this corner.
in the rear and yeah, that's it.
Okay.
If people coming, yeah, I mean, it may be there primarily, the crosswalk and the sidewalk is there primarily for the buildings, but people are going to use that to get around to the front. And we don't want them deciding to walk down the back along the sidewalk, coming to the ordering area and saying, oops. And then trying to walk around it. So please, I think that connection would be important. I had a question about the patio. Actually, the note was benches, but I think you've explained that they're going to be tables there. Are they going to be year round or removed in the winter? Or what's that going to be?
I believe they'll be movable, so they will have the option to move them around. I can't speak to whether they're going to be pulled in the middle of the winter or left out, but I believe they are movable.
I would suggest that it's important to have at least a couple of benches year round. So if you've got the tables, that substitutes for the benches, but if they're going to be pulled aside, it would be helpful just to have a seating area there, a bench by the door, by the Starbucks door. That would be helpful. I seem to recall the discussion that we had at the last time. Mr. Beely had a question about deliveries. Where are the trucks going to be delivering materials to and supplies?
Yep. Trucks will be delivering materials and supplies around the rear at off hours.
Okay, so they're not going to be interfering with cars zipping around to get to the
Correct.
get to the window.
Correct.
Okay. I don't know what sort of signage or instructions you're going to be able to give them, but if that's open early, off hours becomes, I mean, is it off hour 4 a.m.?
I will certainly provide some clarification to that in our response to
Yeah,
comments.
I think that would be important because that becomes a safety issue if that's where they're going to stop and deliver. I do recall generally the discussion that we had, and it was a very general discussion about the next building that might come in there, and how I guess we would hope to get people used to getting to the Starbucks area if they were coming in off of Payne Road. And I'd like to suggest again that at the Payne Road entrance, there be some sort of sign that says Starbucks this way at one of the drive aisles that's not immediate, so people aren't making a very fast left. But they can see instructions a little further down and know that they drive down that drive aisle. And that will get them used to that sort of practice when you start to think about how the next building is going to look. I think, I don't know what advice I can give you about the pipes across Payne Road, except to say, if you're going to be working on digging up Payne Road in July or August, that's a potential nightmare in terms of the amount of traffic. So I urge you to work with the planning staff and our road crews to make sure that any activity there is done very quickly and with the least disruption possible because it is going to be a hassle having that area dug up. I think that is all I had. Let me just take a fast look at notes and see if I had anything else. I have a note, there was no hydrocad, and I had questions on the pond, but I think that's been addressed, or that you are going to address that. So that's it. Do you have any questions of us?
Not at the moment. You guys have been wonderful.
I'm not even going to comment about whether we're doing something right or wrong. We appreciate the work that you're doing and your responsiveness to our questions and issues. Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you for your feedback, and we'll look forward to getting a response to comments to you and following up.
Thank you very much. And I just managed to throw out my agenda. Just a second. Oh, yeah. Item number 9, LaPlante Electric requests a site plan amendment review for a commercial business located at 717 Route 1, Assessors Map U29, Lot 201. Eric?
Thank you. So LaPlante Electric is seeking a site plan amendment review for a commercial business that is out of compliance with an approved 2008 site plan. The town has become aware that there's been several improvements made on site, as well as other issues that bring this site out of compliance with the town zoning ordinance. And as such, we have issued a notice of, the code enforcement department has issued a notice of violation for the property. This applicant serves to bring the site into compliance with respect to only screening of storage areas, concrete pad locations, and dumpster locations on the site. The town is aware that parking is another violation and issue on the site. And we've been informed by LaPlante Electric that resolving that issue is going to be quite cumbersome. So another site plan application to address that will be forthcoming. For now, I believe the vehicles will be moved off-site to correct that violation. Staff has identified several concerns with the plan, including moving the concrete pads out of the setback, as well as landscaping in these areas to mitigate unpermitted parking in that proximity. The board's received ample comment on this project, some of which we received in the previous weeks, which have been included in your packets, and some which has been received today, which should be printed out for you and readily available. And with that, I will turn it back to the board.
Thank you. And for the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Jim Fisher with Northeast Civil Solutions, here this evening representing LaPlante Electric. As Eric mentioned, we've got a couple of issues of non-compliance. LaPlante moved into this site about not quite a year ago as far as beginning their operations. They do have about 15 service vehicles, typically the heavy-duty pickups and some small panel vans that are used professionally. Those have been moved off-site. That was one of the issues. As you may know, the site, it was Queens Drive goes in from Route 1. On the right side of Queens Drive, or on the northerly side, is the TVC district and this is a condoed lot. There are 2 structures there. And then on the left side of Queens Drive is a vacant, sort of triangular portion of property that is vacant. And that's the area, as we just mentioned, that we'll be back to the board in a little bit as far as the parking is concerned. I'll show the parking on that area. In the meantime, as soon as the weather changes just a little bit, the ground becomes less frozen, then that area will be revegetated. It's completely vegetated now, but it's been chewed up a little bit because of the parking that was there. Those vehicles are now off-site, and we'll be dealing with that again shortly when we come back to the board here. Staff, we came up with a couple of comments regarding the areas that are in the back of the building, proposed to be in the back of the building, which would be small outdoor storage areas. Those storage areas right now are actually on the southerly side of the building, adjacent to Queens Drive. We're proposing to, again, make those in the back of the building. The areas, the pad areas, the concrete pad areas that are fenced and one open pad that's on the southerly side adjacent of the building adjacent to Queens Drive, those will be removed completely. And those areas will be revegetated. And we will also do some plantings in there according to typically the municipal planting schedules for that area. And that will basically camouflage a little bit that area of the building. We are talking about the back of the building here, not the Route 1 frontage. But we will be having some plantings along there just to kind of soften a little bit the people that are coming down Queens Drive when they look at the back of the structure. So that's for as far as the landscaping is concerned. The dumpster, there's currently a dumpster at the very back end of the parking area. We're proposing, there are 2 dumpsters that the LaPlante had put immediately adjacent to Queens Drive, where these 2 pads are now and are about to be eliminated. And the dumpster will go back where the dumpster is now. It'll be a larger dumpster area, one for recycling, one for solid waste. And we're actually proposing to, what you see in your plans, we're proposing to mirror that. There's an existing dumpster area that's on the right-hand side as you're looking at it here. We are proposing to put the 2 other dumpsters on the left. These are fully enclosed. We're just going to flip that over to the right side of the existing dumpster, primarily because there has been a request by the other condominium owner, the furniture store. Upon occasion, they get some fairly large tractor trailers that come in with furniture for them, and they back into the back of that building. And they have mentioned that they might have a little bit more of a challenge trying to go back out when they leave. They go back out into Queens Drive and then come back out to Route 1, making that turning radii. Both of those radii, or both of the access drive and Queens Drive, are 24 feet wide. So that's more of a driver problem than it is a vehicular radii problem, but we'll make sure that there is enough room on the site in case they need to take a little bit wider arc. That's the reason why we'll flip those dumpsters to the other side. As far as storage access is concerned, again, the smaller slab that's at the easterly corner will also be removed. That's not fenced in currently, but it will be removed. And then there was a request by staff to be able to show on this new plan the actual parking spaces, the stripes parking spaces that would be applicable for both units. LaPlante Electric doesn't really have that many people, notwithstanding their service vehicles. They don't really have anybody going to their facility. It's an electric company, and what they do is they install all the electrical wiring, the conduit, and what have you to new and existing structures. So it's not like they have a lot of customers actually going to the building. So notwithstanding their employees, there really is no parking issue there. On the other side, we will address, I believe it's Shaker Furniture, and we will address the amount of parking that's required there. It is already in existence. We'll simply show that on the plan. Notwithstanding that, we're just here really to focus on the covers. These will be shed roofs that are over small fenced-in areas on the back of the building, and we will be able to put some outdoor storage in that area. They'll be immediately adjacent to the building. They will not be in any setbacks, and that's pretty simply put all there is to it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address any of them.
This item is subject to a public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to make a comment? Thank you. Again, if you step up to the podium, give your name and address, and please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Craig Murdoch. I live at 4 Queens Drive. My property abuts the vacant lot that's there. And we're having a lot of problems with parking issues that are there. Unloading and unloading of trucks constantly throughout the day. This is what it's like in the morning, every morning. I mean, it's a danger coming down through. You have guys walking back and forth across the road. You've come around the corner. Many people have almost hit somebody going back and forth. I mean, this just goes on all day long. It's just a concern. I mean, this is listed as a town and village, town and village TVC. And this is unloading and unloading, loading and unloading trucks. This should be down in the industrial park, not here. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people on the street that also agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online, Jay? We have people online?
Yes, we have one person. All I see is one name, Eric. Eric, I'm going to hit the allow to speak. You'll just need to unmute yourself and you should be able to
Hi, my name is Eric Lewis. I live at 9 Queen Drive. I reached out to Eric earlier this morning, specifically mentioning, once again, unloading and unloading of flatbed trucks and what employees need to get to and from their vehicles on a daily basis. I'd like to specifically mention how our neighborhood has worked with the board building the new Dunstan Crossing area. That includes restaurants with loud music, live music, and knowing that's a benefit to the community, that is something that we do want to have around. But commercializing the end of a dead-end street with a single access to Route 1 for unloading and loading just doesn't seem right. And I would like to ask the board not to amend this proposition and allow for the existing zoning to stay, please. That is all.
All right, thank you. In addition, I have communications from Cece LeBurge, Pat Sullivan, Harold Ellis, Steve Salona, Eric Lewis. I believe that's all, but those are the communications that have come in, and they will be on the record. Let me turn this over now. If there are no further, then public hearing time is over, and turn this over to the board for comments. But actually, before we do that, I would like Eric to be very clear on what this part of what this application has in terms of what we're looking at, because we know that there are more issues than have come forward on this application, but we need to work with what's in front of us. So I'd appreciate if Eric can clarify that so we have a sense of what we should be looking at.
Sure. So this application strictly deals with those outside storage areas that Jim was showing. It also deals with the dumpster area on the western part of the site, as well as the employee break areas. I think those are the only three big things that this application addresses. Parking, I know there's a lot of residents have concerns about parking along Queens Drive. That will be addressed as part of the next, the other submission for the site plan amendment. So the board should really just be cognizant of these three issues for tonight until we receive the second application.
Thank you. Does anybody on the board have a question about what Eric has talked about and what we should be looking at? Jen?
I do. You didn't mention landscaping, but I think you mentioned landscaping. Does this current application in front of us include landscaping changes, or should we be looking for that the next time around?
We'll certainly have, it's not included on the packet right now. The landscaping, basically, I mean, the building has been there for quite a while, as well as the lot on which it's based. And there hasn't been any landscaping there recently. The plants haven't taken anything out, but we're proposing to augment that landscaping, which is basically now just grass lawn. And we will be making some plantings of some bushes and some trees. We'll have that information for you as far as those specific details are concerned at the next go round. But I did want to mention that landscaping is certainly part of this, and we will be taking care of that.
Okay, thank you.
And to kind of supplement that, the TVC zone standards actually state that the setback should be used not for parking, but for landscaping, pedestrian amenities. So this is actually called for in the zoning ordinance as part of the TVC zone.
Roger.
Yeah, aren't we also talking about removing these two slabs that are on the side of the building?
I think we are, but I think they've already indicated, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've already indicated you're going to be removing those slabs?
That is correct.
Okay, and then the three storage areas, and then the two dumpsters, which are up in the northwest section.
That's correct.
And where are those dumpsters going again?
There's a dumpster pad currently at the back end of the parking lot. We're going to be adding a double dumpster fenced in area to that, one for recycling and one for solid waste. So right now you'll see where the dumpster area is. We're proposing the dumpster area to the left. We're still proposing it, but we're going to mirror that. We're going to flip it basically exactly right where the cursor is pointing right now.
Excuse me, if you can see the screen, as I understand it, this larger rectangle area is what is currently proposed. And that is being proposed to now be flipped based on the comments over to this side.
Okay.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then just to further clarify, as I understand it, these are the areas to be removed.
That is correct. Yep.
And these 1, 2, 3 are the outdoor covered storage areas that are being proposed. So
That's correct.
in essence, yes, there's a number of issues that need to be cleaned up at the site, but really the genesis or the basics of the application are really about those 3 outdoor storage areas and the dumpster enclosure. And then there's a host of other things to clean up, understanding, but those are really the new things on site, so to speak.
And were those slabs, created since the plant?
Yes.
Oh, they were, okay.
Yes.
And just for my general information, this triangular spot, I know we're not dealing with that tonight, but do they do parking? You put parking over there too? So you own that property?
That's owned by the condominium association.
Oh, okay.
So it's this lot and then that lot on the other side of Queens Drive.
So on this condominium association, can they park anywhere on this whole
So
association?
I guess it really depends on what the site plan shows. So right now, parking was not shown over there as part of the site plan. It was part of like a future phase, I guess. So at this point, no, but again, that's the point of this application and the application that's going to be forthcoming for a site plan amendment with respect to the parking.
Okay. I'm all set right now.
And Madam Chair, if I may, just a point of clarification as to what Eric brought up, and Roger, when we do come back for the parking, it's a little bit more challenging than just putting in a parking area, because in this particular zone, parking needs to be covered. It does not need to be enclosed, but it needs to have a roof over it, basically. So it's a little bit more challenging than just putting, and I'm being a little facetious and dumping gravel on the grass. But so obviously that will be engineered in terms of stormwater maintenance, and then a structure that would go over there. That will be the proposal. We're working with staff toward that end, and we'll have it before the board here shortly.
And Madam Chair, just at danger of putting too fine a point on it, I just want to be clear that the covered parking is really required when we're talking about the sort of outdoor keeping of vehicles in excess of 24 hours. So if it's just a regular parking area for retail, you don't have to cover it. What we're really talking about in this application is we know the business, as was stated, has 15 vehicles. Those vehicles stay there sometimes for longer than, they're not customer vehicles, right? They could stay on site. So our ordinance talks about is outdoor storage needs to be covered. And the definition of outdoor storage is the keeping of vehicles for more than 24 hours. At some point, one of these vehicles is going to stay there. And why I say at the danger of putting too fine a point on it, that's not what's being proposed tonight. That was subject of part of the violation discussion that our department has had. The wonderful thing about vehicle parking is violation of that, it can be resolved by simply turning a key and driving away. So that problem we've attempted to address, and our department will continue to monitor. It's now the long-term items on site that are before the board tonight. So I hope that provides some clarity for folks.
Not entirely, but it's going to have to do. Any other comments from the board?
I have one.
Go ahead.
When you come back, can you kind of give us a picture or something of what this covered over the storage that you're proposing to put here, what that looks like from
Sure. I mean,
maybe Queens Drive?
We can certainly do that. It's basically, to answer your question, it's just simply a hip roof.
Yeah, but I kind of like to see it in the back of that building and like to see what you're going to see coming in and out of Queens Drive.
We can certainly put that there with the landscaping there. You're not like eventually, I mean, it's not going to happen right away, but within a couple
Well,
of
then
years.
your drawing would probably have that nice buffer in there and everything like that.
Exactly.
I'd like to see an elevation of the backside of that building with the covered storage that you're proposing.
We can do that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
And I second Rick's request. I'm looking at the plans, and I guess from my perspective, I don't have enough. I understand what you're asking, I think. And let me just run through it to make sure I've got it right. You are proposing to remove the two concrete slabs that are actually encroaching on the easement. You are proposing to install 3 storage areas that are on slabs. Is that correct?
They may be on slabs, they'll be covered, so it may just be a gravel base.
Okay, but we don't know what the coverage is. We just know there's a notation that says a stockade fence. Yeah, you got proposed covered outdoor storage areas. We don't have a picture of them. We don't know what they look like. And you have the proposed dumpster enclosure, and you have indicated it's a shed roof, but we don't know what ultimately it looks like. Am I right?
From a photo standpoint, you're correct. There is a depiction on the plan, on the left-hand side of the plan, of the details.
Yeah, we see a hip roof cross section. Proposed vertical support column. That I guess doesn't do it for me in terms of a description. In my opinion, this application, while it's simple, seems to be simple, is incomplete. Not enough for me to make a decision on, but I'll ask the board members if they want to see this again. We do not have a draft motion, and I'm not clear that at this point, I don't know if you think we're ready for it. Roger?
And I'm not sure about that, but I just wanted to get a clarification for the public from staff. In a TVC zone, light industrial can be utilized in that zone. Is that correct?
Actually, no. The policy of the town is that these type of uses are actually can be considered retail services. If you look at our definition of retail sales and services,
yeah,
it's fairly broad. And so these are considered retail services, provided everything is sort of internal, right? That we don't have, they don't become contractor yards per se, where you have piles of material storage. And I think that's where the conversation with the folks at LaPlante Electric and our department have gone is, okay, we're starting to see, there's lots of things happening around the site that are starting to go away from that retail services piece more towards the light industrial piece, as you're talking about. And so that's what this application is aimed at cleaning up, is, okay, how do we bring that back into being more of a retail service where they're, yeah, so that's.
So basically, light industrial, which I would consider what they're doing right now, more or less light industrial versus retail. Okay, where people just walk in and buy things.
Again, it's a retail service, so you need to look at the whole definition of it. So it's not as simple as, I agree with you. You hear the word retail, I'm going to buy a pair of jeans.
Okay.
But if you read the town's definition of retail sales, and the important part being and service, it's not retail sales service or retail service. It's this very, so it's.
Okay, so their sales reps go out and sell a generator. And they sell it presumably from that location, but they're maybe at somebody's home or something like that, or business, and then they go out and install it. That would fit that definition.
Sure, and these guys aren't generator salesmen, as I understand it, but I think that's a fair analogous to what's happening here.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought it was important to clarify that for the public on the TVC type thing, you know? Not that that's clear.
I suppose my druthers would have been that it come to us complete, so that we could see the whole application. But it's not. What we have before us, as I said, is removal of the 2 concrete slabs, which they've agreed to, installation or covering. And again, I'm not clear whether these storage areas are already there, or at least the base is already there, or whether we're talking about putting on the base and then covering it. At least I'm clear on the dumpster in the back. Does anybody else on the board have anything that will help?
You know, I come from the zoning board. I see residents. We got a lot of residents that speak
Mhm.
today. I wonder if they have any suggestions, if they have any feedback. You flew up a picture really quick. I didn't see it. I was like, why don't you put a fence up there? In the 2 seconds I saw that. I feel like sometimes, and what we always encourage is work with your neighbors. And I know I can appreciate the frustration that you and all of you must feel living there at the end of that road and dealing with kind of what's transgressed. I think they kind of got caught making some violations. I think they're working with the town. I think that's great. I just want to encourage, he wants to be a good neighbor, and I think we could probably try to find some sort of middle ground and make it work.
I would hope, but that's still not what's before us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask Jay to see if he can straighten this out
I guess
and
what I would
provide
offer-
some suggestions.
Absolutely. I mean, the applicant has, did provide a proposal. Staff identified a series of issues to be resolved, and I think the applicant, I thought I even heard in their presentation, sort of understood that they have a little more work to do. I think I've heard the applicant made very clear they're going to make some changes to the plan. So my suggestion to the board would be to table this item until the applicant makes those changes and comes back. And I've heard the board ask for a couple of additional items as well. Clarity maybe on items that we already have around what the shed roofs are going to look like, a little more beyond what the drawings we have here. And so it seems like this one's ripe for another review, in my estimation, but certainly at the board's discretion.
If
Go
I-
ahead,
if I
Jen.
may, I think I agree with that statement that Jay made, and I think that this is certainly a step in the right direction. I think if you could include some more information in the next submission, things that we've already talked about, some landscaping details, a rendering or a photo, like a before and after kind of photo of sort of what the back of this site, what your neighbors may come to expect here. And if that's included in your packet, there would be that becomes publicly available. And so the public and the other neighbors here in theory would have the opportunity to see that ahead of time and perhaps tailor any comments that they may have publicly at the next meeting. Yes, this is a treatment that's acceptable to us, or, kind of to Karen's point, like add some other feedback on things like that. So not only would additional information be helpful to us, I guess is what I'm getting at. There may be a benefit to it in the neighbors as well.
Do you have a comment?
Just given that the staff comments were extraneous to the roof issue, it's really the covering of the outdoor storage areas. And Madam Chair, I think you had the question about what's there right now. The back corner of the building, the northerly corner of the building, there's a fenced-in graveled storage area already there. Does not have a roof on it. It will. The two that we're proposing immediately behind the building, there's nothing there right now. It's just vegetated. So we're moving everything from the side of the building to the back, everything meaning the small outdoor storage areas, and just literally covering them with a single hip roof, a shed roof. So from the coverage standpoint, covering outdoor storage areas and the fencing details, I think we've got everything on the plan that covers all that. The other details, none of the comments are dealing with these specific issues as far as the roofer is concerned. This is the landscaping. Sure, we'll be happy to put landscaping in there. That's easy. As far as the elevation drawings, we can certainly show that. But nevertheless, it's just, again, a hip roof covered, and it's only like 10 feet wide. So it's not really a huge issue. I think we've probably covered the reason why we're here this evening. We certainly can come back. We're going to be back as far as the parking lot is concerned anyway, but that's no longer an issue at the moment because the vehicles are gone. So we're happy to come back. But as far as approvals for the covered storage areas, I think you've probably got most of what we could show you.
What are the colors?
The colors?
Sure.
You mean like?
I mean, you know, usually when we see something, in this case, it looks like it's attached to the building. How does it fill in? How does it fit with the building? What are the colors? What are the materials?
Okay, it's an outdoor storage area, so it's only going to have a roof. And toward that end, you know, a typical probably green roof or a shingled roof. I mean, we can show that, but I think it's a brown shingled roof or a green shingled roof.
Your plans show you're putting a stockade fence around them and then you're putting a roof on it?
The roof will go in. The roof is going to be covering the area. And from a security standpoint, it's typically one of those the white vinyl fences. That we
Okay,
see
so that
around.
should be easy to draw and give us a picture of what that looks like. I want to make sure when the community, the folks that live down there are driving down Queens Drive, I want to be able to make sure that this dresses this up nicely. What I think, being an electrical contractor, you probably have racks of conduit and stuff like that you want to tuck in these storage areas and get them out of the way.
Exactly.
That's great. Let's see what all that looks like when it's all nice and tidy. And then I'm sure it'll pass muster if it's done according to the ordinances and all the setbacks, and we have proper buffering. I think we'll be good to go. I just think we just don't see enough to make me comfortable to say, okay, I'm good with that.
Fair enough.
Let me ask the board if it's ready for a motion to table this and have them basically come back with more.
Well, do we need to table it or just say it's not ready for a motion and just come back with our concerns and address them?
Jay has suggested tabling. Is there a difference?
I don't see much of a difference, and not being an expert in Robert's rules, to be quite honest, I think if the board tells the applicant, you're not quite ready, come back when you are. That to me the same as an official tabling motion.
Well, actually, an official tabling.
A good item for a future workshop with the attorney.
Yes. And I believe an official tabling motion requires that we give a date. In other words, tabled until the next meeting. We have to do a time certain. If we simply ask the applicant to come back to us, that allows the applicant the time to complete the application and bring it back to us.
I would opt for that.
A lot of yeses. Thank you very much. We'll see you again.
Thank you all for your time.
Next on the agenda, staff report.
Thank you, Rachel. A lot going on right now. I think just because it's fresh on the brain, bringing up the Roberts rules and kind of planning board member worksmanship workshop with the town's attorney, Phil Saucier. Phil has said he's available a couple days next week, and then also any evening except Friday evening the following week in the end of March. I had seen that Jen, you were going to be away or not available the first week. The first week he had proposed, but it looked like the 28th worked for just about everybody. I did talk with Rick Duperry. He only gave me availability for the 21st through the 24th. So I don't know if he will be available.
So Mondays actually don't work for me.
Oh, okay.
So me being here on a Monday is actually very difficult, but I want to be here. But I'm also done a lot of attorney trainings, and if it's trained or like videotaped, I don't want to throw everyone off by being the only one who can't do Mondays and Tuesdays and Fridays.
Right.
I think it's, it's much more than just a straight attorney training. It's really a
Yeah.
good opportunity for the board. It's some of that, but also just a good opportunity for the board to have a chat amongst ourselves to sort of say what's working, what's not working. So I really do think trying to find a date where if we can get all 7 people say, yes, we should really work to do that. So if that means pushing into April, I personally would suggest let's cast maybe a wider net. It might be a few weeks later than we were hoping, but better to have those in attendance, and we'll shoot for a Wednesday or Thursday rather than a Monday, Tuesday, or Friday. Was that what you said, Karen? Was
It is,
Wednesdays
yeah.
and Thursdays?
Yep.
So
And so I have to say that at the training we went to recently, they said to not use Robert rules. So
okay, there you
I'm
go.
curious to get that feedback.
We are supposed to required to use Robert's rules. If you notice, we seldom do. Sometimes they're good to untangle something.
Well, that's why I was honestly very confused at some of the stuff they said at the training, because they're like, you need to stay away from this. They also said we all need freedom of information training, and it's required.
Oh, God, I hate FOA.
Be sure Phil said it.
Exactly. That's see, right there.
So the proposal is to put it off a little bit to see if we can get, what is it, a Wednesday and a Thursday or Thursday?
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday in April.
No, a Wednesday or Thursday in April in St. Lucia.
All right, I'll reach out to Phil and we'll get some availability dates from him. Otherwise, on the staff report, we had a pre-con at Layton Farm for phase 5. They had started construction without the pre-con and were in violation with some other fees that they had to pay. So those are now addressed, and it's now open for construction, so to speak, as Angela will probably happily tell you. We've also had a pre-con for IDEX, which I believe has already started construction at the pre-con. They told us they'd start, I think it was like Monday the 7th or something. So they probably are about a week in at this point. And last but not least, we had a CO issued, I believe, for oyster development down on 100 Innovation Way at the Downs. So that should now be occupied. I know Jay had some updates maybe on the Downs. I don't know if you wanted to go over that or if you wanted me
Yep, if
go for it.
you're ready for me to jump in, yeah.
That's all I have.
Yep. So thank you, Angela. Turn my mic on. Yeah, just a quick update. So as you know, the Downs has been working with the council on a GMO growth management ordinance exemption request with the revised growth management ordinance that happened just around 10 months ago or so. There's sort of this exemption process. And so that's an ongoing discussion. I just wanted to inform you that that's ongoing. You may have seen some of the workshops and meetings that council has had. So really just let you know it's continuing. That's really all I wanted to offer. I don't have any insight further than that at this point to provide. I think, Roger, I'm not entirely certain, but we can keep you posted if there's public meetings, we'll let you know about that. Another thing I wanted to let you guys know about that department is working with at the ordinance committee level, a discussion around manufactured housing provisions in our ordinance and the licensing. As some may know, we have sort of a very antiquated trailers and trailer home ordinance or something like that. It was written in 1946. It's completely antiquated. It's been butchered along the way. And so we're really trying to take a new holistic, fresh look at it. So because it's an ordinance amendment, it will wind up coming to you for a public hearing at some point. But again, that'd probably be a May or June type item for you. That's what I have at the moment.
Thank you. Angela, you got anything? I mean, might as well hear from all of you. You managed to sit here very patiently.
I guess I would just add, we are doing a workshop with, our council with Cape Elizabeth Council, talking about Sawyer Street, which is our shared road, and about, with sea level rise and, a lot of issues, we're finding that road closed quite often now, and looking at what do we do to move forward, or perhaps not move forward, perhaps looking at abandoning it. But that's a bigger conversation between two communities. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's it's a pretty big conversation.
Thank you.
And that's just when-
All right. Administrative amendment report.
We have none.
That was easy. Minor development reviews.
Yep, so we have one minor development review underway right now. That is for the Nani Corp LLC, which is requesting a site plan amendment review down on Dynamic Drive in the Innovation District.
Excuse me, is that Throttle?
Yes.
Okay.
So they are now proposing to shift their kind of accessory building there further north on Dynamic Drive. So they're proposing that, and to kind of complement the existing Throttle Car Club. So there's a lot of details that we're going to be looking at and sending those out to various other departments to look at as well. On the approved side for minor development reviews, staff last week just issued an approval for a temporary trailer on Abbott's Washington Avenue location. So they requested to have a temporary trailer for about 1.5 years or 2 years. So if they haven't removed that within 2 years from now, then that's going to be an issue, but they don't expect that at this point as they're currently constructing a South Portland location. So that's all I have for minor development reviews.
All right, thank you. Board comments. Roger?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. Prior to the pandemic, when I ride around town, I constantly see sites that I think were approved for projects. And, but obviously nothing's been done because, and I attribute that to the pandemic. Are we seeing any activity where people are coming back to the planning department to?
I guess I'm a little surprised by that comment, because I feel like we have a lot of development going on in town. So I don't know if that many sites.
I can tell you
that
too,
aren't-
right off the
Yeah.
top is that place right across from Ginn Road. I believe that was approved.
Yep,
And
you're
then
right.
the restaurant down on the Parkway. I'm not sure whether that was approved
Down
or
in the
not.
Parkway.
The wine bar type place?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was approved.
It's called the Borough.
And then didn't Chamberlain, not Chamberlain, Eastern Village, didn't he have a building, 2 buildings by the
That's
rock
being-
wall?
Yeah, that's being developed.
Is that finally broken ground
Yeah, on the Parkway.
on the Parkway? Okay,
And the other thing is
okay.
the other
I haven't
thing
been
is
down
the
there that
other
way.
Starbucks that's going right there by Golf and Ski.
Yep, so let's see, that Starbucks never came forward for plan board review.
Okay.
And then those other 2 projects, you're right, those haven't moved forward. I think
But I think they were kind of slow moving.
they were
before the
slow moving, right?
pandemic. I don't
And
know.
another one
That
is
just made it worse.
right down here by the cheese irons.
So I guess, yeah, and again, I guess, Roger, we try to let you know when pre-constructions are happening, when COs are happening. I don't know that we're in a great position to tell you everything that's going on with each business and why they're not planning to go forward. That's really not our role as staff.
No, I understand.
So it's a little difficult to sort of say, we can have a chat offline, I guess is maybe.
No, I was just.
And I'm busy enough, Roger, you're trying to make more work for me.
Yeah, I am, yeah. Get you some overtime.
I don't think I need it.
And we do have a standard condition that states the planning board approval expires after a year, so.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because, for instance, I know the senior developments that have been approved, and they're not going, there's nothing happening, by Little Dolphin and the one down there by,
Little Dolphins moving
by
forward.
None Such
Yeah, that had to
Plaza.
go through Main Street
None Such
Housing and
Plaza
all
hasn't
that
gotten
kind of
approval yet.
Oh,
It hasn't come to you for.
oh,
site
okay,
plan
okay,
approval.
okay. I was just wondering whether.
Yep. I think those are probably pretty few and far between. I only know of, I've only been here 4 months, so, but I know of one project that had to reduce its scope because the just insane amount of money that you'd have to spend on building supplies. So I'm only aware of one of those projects, and we're working with that person administratively to get that squared away.
Yeah, and there is one conservation district off of Broad Turn Road, and I was going up Broad Turn Road a while ago, and that has started. That one that was in the gravel pit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They've started working on that, so that is going forward. That kind of lagged for a while, but that's going forward. Other board comments? Rick?
Yeah, I think I had a chance to go into the old firehouse and see the Rosemont and the Harbor Fish, and what a nice job that turned out to be. And I think it's a good example of taking a building that outgrew or didn't grow with the town and now has been changed to a different service. And I think it's going to be a welcome addition to Scarborough. I'm anxious to see the Avesta housing get started on that, senior housing.
I may have an update on that. As we were sitting here, the county commissioners, Cumberland County Commissioners were meeting to review the recommendation of the Citizens Opera Advisory Committee. And 3 Avesta projects, including the one at the fire station, were on the list of approval for some funding in the vicinity of about 300,000. So we know something's going on. I don't know what action the county commissioner is going to take, but that is being reviewed tonight, and I'll find out tomorrow at the meeting. Comments? All right, thank you. Given if all I can say is if the change in the number of apartments allowed at the Downs does go through the growth management permit, we will not have easy meetings anymore, this being a relatively easy meeting, because they will take up, I think we'll start to see more building projects starting to come in. There's been a hiatus. For those of you who have new, we haven't seen much really other than the corner of Mussey and Gorham. And I would suspect a lot of that was due to the growth management permits. But if that starts to change, I would imagine we're going to get a lot busier. Motion to adjourn? I think you got it as a motion to adjourn. Second? And all in favor? Oh, yeah. Okay, we are adjourned.